Welcome, my friends. I am Mark W. the Relentless, and my spawn, Rob Bob, the also Relentless, cannot make it today because he has homework. But I will be playing by myself then this game book that you see before you. It is called Dracula, Curse of the Vampire by Jonathan Green. Hello there, guys. Um, yeah, so this is my usual Saturday night gaming stream, and I typically host it with my son, Mr. Rob Bob, as I just alluded to, and he cannot make it. That's what I was trying to say in a creepy style. But yeah, we're gonna play Dracula: Curse of the Vampire, and this is an ace game book by Jonathan Green. He is quite possibly the preeminent game book author of today. Um, and he tends to write his stories based on classic stories. Maybe it's nice to have some material to work with rather than coming up with your own. I don't know. Maybe he comes up with some of his own too. But I know he's done Beowulf. He's done obviously this one Dracula. He's done well actually the Krampus one that I streamed about a year ago around Christmas time. That's kind of original material, although he didn't invent the monster that is Krampus, of course. And he also did like an Alice in Wonderland book, a couple others. But yeah, he writes some good stuff. And tonight we're gonna play this one, Dracula: Curse of the Vampire. I've been meaning to do this one for a few weeks, but life got in the way. You know, it seemed like it was perfect for Halloween season, especially this guy's beautiful mug. Like, what other season? You just look at that face and you say, to what season does this mug belong to? And you would say, well, it's got to be Halloween, right? Anyway, we're going to pretend it's Halloween time still here on Mark W. and Rob Bob Present. And what else is there to say about this before we just dive into it? Well, one thing that's extremely notable to me. Let's go for two things that I can think of. And let me preface, by the way, I haven't played this yet. This is my first time playing. But the two extremely notable things to me, noteworthy things, are one, the length of this thing. This is one thick game book. This is perhaps the in terms of number of pages at least, the longest game book I've ever seen. And that includes if you count any kind of RPG game book like a Tunnels and Trolls solo, if you count any fighting fantasy book, any lone wolf book, any of those, this is way bigger than all of them. Does that mean it's necessarily better? Well, maybe not, but I'm impressed that they can make something this huge nonetheless. And it has, it looks like it has 1,000 paragraphs. If you go to the end of the book, you can see it ends at exactly paragraph. I thought I said 1,000. Anyway, yeah, 1,000 paragraphs. And in terms of number of pages, it looks like about 650. That's massive. That's huge. Why is it so huge? Well, I actually meant to show you. I think I forgot to bring it to my desk here, but I wanted to compare it to the novel of Dracula on which this game book is based. And I forgot to bring it up to show you a visual side by side, but the novel Dracula is like probably like this thick, like not even a half, maybe about a third, maybe a quarter. And so this, does that mean it goes beyond what's in the scope of the original novel Dracula? Perhaps you could say that. And the other really interesting thing I wanted to mention was here are some of the character sheets. Not the character sheets themselves that are interesting, but you can play as Jonathan Harker, one of the vampire hunters, Mina Murray, Dr. Seward, who's upside down right now. He's doing actually that's this is kind of the spoiler, and this was totally accidental. Count Dracula is hanging out upside down, being a bat and all. But I wanted to show you Dr. Seward first. But the interesting thing to me is you can play as Count Dracula, and I want to say again, I haven't actually played this game book yet, but I can only assume that a sizable chunk of this massive thickness is dedicated to the Dracula path. It's a totally separate point of view, I would assume, from Dracula. I mean, how could it not be, right? Again, I haven't played this, but how could it not be like a totally separate game book in this one larger book almost? Maybe there's some overlap in the paragraphs between the hunters and Dracula. I don't know, but I would think it has to at least be like 80-90% distinct. Um, yeah, and Jonathan Green, he seems really diligent, a really good designer, good writer. I definitely recommend his books, but I have high hopes for this one. And Arturo is in the chat. He's one of our super regulars, and he says, "I saw the end. You should have announced spoilers. Now my night is ruined." I'm so sorry, Arturo. All right. Is there anything else to say before we just dive into it? I did stream 2 of Jonathan's Ace game books before, and they were the Beowulf book, and as I mentioned earlier, the Krampus game book. Those were a lot of fun. Why don't I read this the backside of the book? 1897. In the wolf-haunted Carpathian Mountains, a young solicitor, Jonathan Harker, travels to an isolated castle to assist a mysterious count with purchasing a number of properties in England. So this is basically a game about real estate. It's a lot like Monopoly, as you can tell. But what he witnesses there drives him to the edge of madness. Meanwhile, in Whitby, Harker's fiancée, Mina Murray, visits her dear friend Lucy Westenra. But during her stay, Lucy is attacked and becomes seriously ill. And if you've ever read the story or seen any of the movies, I mean, there should be no secret about what this is about. So I'm not gonna, try to explain the basic story of Dracula. I guess this is kind of doing it here. This is the premise. In London, Lucy's tutor and physician, Dr. John Seward, becomes preoccupied with the case of a certain Mr. Renfield, played by Nicolas Cage, an inmate at his lunatic asylum, who seeks to collect lives for his master, having not long returned from a trip to Transylvania. And so the pieces for the game are set, for they are all pawns in a plan devised centuries ago by the how do you say it? This is the band Voivod, Voivode of Wallachia, Vlad Tepes, a cruel tyrant whom history remembers as the son of the devil. His bloodthirsty deeds having earned him another name, Dracula. Dracula Curse of the Vampire is an interactive horror novel inspired by Bram Stoker's classic gothic chiller, in which you decide which route to take, which perils to risk, and which of the terrifying creatures you will meet along the way to fight. Play as Jonathan Harker, Mina Murray, and Dr. John Seward, or even Count Dracula himself. But be warned, whether you succeed in your quest or succumb to the curse of the vampire will be down to the choices you make. But do not tarry for the dead. Travel fast. There's a special kind of Uber app solely dedicated to the dead, so they get their own special modes of transportation now. Look at this quote here from Chris Halliday, tabletop RPG designer and author. This is the Rolls Royce of game books, and more fun than is strictly legal. So it's almost so fun that we should go to jail for it. Or maybe we should be impaled by Vlad for it. I can think of no other game book which exceeds this in terms of delivering theme, atmosphere, and a compelling story. As a complete package, this is in the top tier of interactive fiction, says Scott H. Moore, board game designer. And I kind of wish they said what specific games they designed, because I don't know the names offhand that those quotes are from. That's okay. And on the front, we have another quote, which is by a Dr. not John Seward, but Chris McCauley, creator of the Stoker verse, which I should have looked up what that is ahead of time. I can only imagine that's like a website all about the whole Dracula, mythology. And maybe it keeps track of all the different, types of fiction, different games and movies and stuff. I'm speculating. Anyway, it's the thing about Stoker, right? Yeah, it says if you love the Fighting Fantasy series, this is a must-have. That's good to know. I do like the Fighting Fantasy series. One thing I should mention again, Jonathan Green. He writes these books not like kind of not with the difficulty in mind that some of the original old school game book authors always injected into their games. In other words, there tends to be a lot of opportunities to not die. Ways to save yourself, and there's a lot of not there's very few very cheap deaths. Like there's nothing like, well, do you go left or right? If you go right, a rock falls on your head and you're dead. I think over enough years, people, the players of these games collectively have recognized that's not really fun, and we usually just cheat when that kind of thing happens anyway. So I would not expect much of that, even though the setting here is probably quite, it seems like it would be very deadly. Vampires hunting you and all that. But why don't we stop talking and dig into the book? Dracula, Curse of the Vampire. I'm always going to be trying to get my camera just right. That's just how it goes on these streams. And it does mention here some of the other books he's written. I won't go over every single one, but he has written some fighting fantasy himself. And he's also written a couple of Sonic the Hedgehog adventure game books. And I did stream one Sonic book before, but it was not Theme Park Panic, nor was it Stormin' Sonic. He's done a couple of Doctor Who, Star Wars, Gamebook Adventures, Warlock's Bounty, Path to Victory. I haven't heard of those last few. But for the 8th game book, I remember I said he likes to base them on classic literature and stuff like that. He's done Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, Neverland, Beowulf, Krampus. Dedicated to Master David Peterson, peerless mentor of heroes and warriors. I don't know who that is. All right, this looks like all we need to take on us this journey. Unless we're playing as Dracula, then we want to burn that stuff. Okay, so we have I'm trying to think about what I'm supposed to do with this table of contents, sort of. All right, we got Beyond the Forest, which I guess is introductory stuff. The adventure sheets, which I've printed out and cut out. They're on the desk right here. Acknowledgements and about the author. Why don't we skip to the back and get into acknowledgements and about the author a little bit. 643. And by the way, I'm probably not going to be able to play the entire game tonight, and that's all right though. Because look at this is massive, and I don't expect to be able to finish it, especially when I'm taking my time going over the intro and everything. Acknowledgements. There are a number of people without whose help I could not have resurrected Bram Stoker's Dracula as an ace game book, and so I would like to take the opportunity to thank them here. First of all, my grateful thanks go to the illustrator, Hauke Kalk. Now, I looked up that name ahead of time because I wanted to make sure I could say it remotely correctly. He is German, therefore it's something like Hauke Kalk, who took over our art duties after the untimely passing of former collaborator Martin McKenna and Nick Bonsick of Manticore Verlag by German publisher, who put us in touch. Hauke has done an astounding job bringing the world of Dracula Curse of the Vampire to life in all its macabre glory, and its portraiture is absolutely incredible. Secondly, thank you to Emma Barnes at Snowbooks for her patience and support, and thirdly to Anna Torborg for doing such a fantastic job on the layout and helping to turn out such a grotesquely glorious looking book. I must also thank Kevin Abbots, who created the bookmarks. Oh, I don't have that. And the hyperlinked ebook version of the adventure. Yeah, there's some advanced, deluxe versions of this book. Like there's a hardback with bookmarks. I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 versions of this book. Thanks are also due to Sakura Stoker, the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker, who wow, that's cool. Who gave his blessing to this project. That's pretty cool, right? Sorry, I'm in awe for a minute. Imagine, like, hey, can I get your, your how do you say great granduncle? Can I make a book based on your great granduncle's book? And Kim Newman for all the inspiration his own Anno Dracula series has provided me with over the years. I'm not familiar with that at all. By the way, I'm not a big, huge Dracula buff personally. I mean, I like it. I've read the original novel, and I like vampire fiction and stuff, but I'm far from an expert who can tell you every little, related anything. Like I have no idea what Count Dracula is, but it's a series that has inspired the author here, apparently. And hello, Mr. Ryan, who says, as a kid, I called him Bram Stoker. Stroker, okay. Bram Stroker. But it would be most remiss of me if I failed to offer a huge and heartfelt thank you to everyone who pledged their support to this grim gothic adventure from the outset and joined me on my journey beyond the forest. Without them, this book would have remained dead and buried, rather than being allowed to crawl from the grave to horrify all with its bloodthirsty tale once more. So, wow, thank you for the likes already, people. We got 5 likes, yet only 2 people watching. That's pretty interesting. Seems like people jumped in, liked, and then left. I don't know. That's all I can think of. And we have the Kickstarter backers, and I'm not going to go over all that, but I did not get in on this. I didn't really hear of it at the time. I like this guy's name though, Andres Rodriguez. His first name needs to be Rodrigo. We have Rodrigo Rodriguez. Anyway, more Kickstarter stuff about the author. Then we'll get into the intro and the rules and stuff. About the author, Jonathan Green is a writer of speculative fiction with more than 70 books to his name. Wow, that many. Well known for his contribution to the fighting fantasy range of adventure game books, he has also written fiction for such diverse properties as Doctor Who, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Warhammer, Warhammer 40,000, Sonic the Hedgehog, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Moshi Monsters, Lego, Judge Dredd, Robin of Sherwood, and Frostgrave. Wow. If there are a Ninja Turtles game book, that would be pretty cool to try. It didn't necessarily say that he wrote a game book for Ninja Turtles, but if there is one, I have to track that down and play it. He's the creator of the Pax Britannia series for Abaddon books and has written 8 novels and numerous short stories set within this steampunk universe, featuring the debonair dandy adventurer Ulysses Quicksilver. He's also the author of an increasing number of non-fiction titles, including the award-winning You Are the Hero: A History of Fighting Fantasy Gamebook series, which I actually have. He occasionally edits and compiles short story anthologies, such as the critically acclaimed Game Over, Shark Punk, and Shakespeare vs. Cthulhu. What? Actually, I've heard of that. I saw it on his website, Ace Game Books, all of which are published by Snow Books. To find out more about Ace Game Books and other projects, visit www.jonathangreenauthor.com and follow him on Twitter at jonathangreen.com. If you don't want to go to jonathangreengardener.com or jonathangreenconstructionworker.com. Gotta make sure you go to the author one, or you'll be in the wrong place. All right, so we got a bunch of empty pages in the back. And now we can get into the intro, read over the rules and stuff. Bear with me a moment while I try to use these arms. I've never used these arms on such a thick book before on my book stand here, so I hope it works out all right. We have the kind of classic image here to start. Dracula's castle, presumably. Doesn't look very castle-like though. It just looks like a. Maybe it does. Maybe it is a castle. And Arturo says Robin of Sherwild is Robin Hood TM. Oh, I know. I have no idea. I don't think it is. Beyond the Forest. This is where I like to use a pencil to point to where I'm reading. Hopefully it helps you to eyeball what I'm actually reading. The book you hold in your hands is a gateway to the world of Gothic horror and an adventure inspired by... hold on, I gotta switch something around here. Technical challenge here. All right, there we go. An adventure inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula. Within its pages, you will undertake a perilous quest to thwart the eponymous Count's evil plans, or perhaps become the bloodsucker himself and battle the vampire hunters ranged against you. For this is no ordinary book. Rather than reading it from cover to cover, you'll discover that at the end of each narrative section, you will be presented with a series of choices that allow you to control the course of the story. In Dracula: Curse of the Vampire, you will take on the role of one of 3 vampire hunters, either young solicitor Jonathan Harker, his fiancée Mina Murray, or Dr. John Seward, or the undead Count Dracula himself. I'm just thinking it for a moment about the the board game Fury of Dracula, and you can play as the same characters if you're on the vampire hunter side. But there's also the hunter Van Helsing, which you cannot play as in this game for whatever reason. I'm not saying that's a flaw or anything, it's just something I noticed. You decide which route to take, which perils to risk, and which of the terrifying creatures you will meet along the way to fight. Success is by no means certain, of course, and you may well fail to complete the adventure at your first attempt. However, with experience, skill, and maybe even a little luck, we do roll dice in this game, so luck will be involved. Each new attempt should bring you closer to your ultimate goal. In addition to the book itself, you will need 2 6-sided dice, got you covered, with my massive collection of dice, or a conventional pack of 52 playing cards, a pencil, as you can see here, I got one of those, an eraser, bingo, and a copy of the Dracula Curse of the Vampire Adventure sheet, got those. Spare copies, which can be downloaded from acegamebooks.com. My minor nitpick here, maybe not a nitpick, but minor complaint. acegamebook.com, it's a lovely website and all, but I could not find these sheets on there at all. I was assuming there would be a PDF link that was obvious. I poked around for like 5 minutes, couldn't find them. I wound up just, scanning them on my printer/scanner device. And that's fine, but, it would be cool if they were there, or they were easier to find. I don't know if I just couldn't find them or something. But yeah, there's one for each character, including the count. And there's also like a blood tracker or something. Because we'll get to this in the intro in a minute, but blood count, you increase the blood count as Dracula gets more power, essentially, more powerful. And you do that even if you're the hunters, right? On either side, you're going to keep track of the blood level. And there's a bunch of code words that I guess you just kind of circle as you're told to do so. Usually games like this, they'll tell you to write down the word, but it's interesting here they give you like it looks like the full set of them, and you just circle them as they appear, I guess. Checking back in with the chat, looks like nothing updated there. That's fine. Just saying. All right, next page. By the way, as always, if you have any requests for any technical stuff I could fix, like, well, the focus is too blurry, or the audio sucks, or I'm too ugly and I should be wearing a hat, just let me know. Also, I would like to solicit the chat for decision-making help, including which characters I'm going to play as. If you want to shout out which character I should be, you can do so now. Although I'm intrigued by the idea of playing as Dracula, I don't know if I want to do that to start, because I feel like that's kind of like the special weird case, So I think tonight I'll just start with one of the hunters. And it does mention in the intro here, I didn't get to it yet, that you will be trading out which character you're playing if you play as a hunter. So you could start as, say, Jonathan Harker, and maybe you change roles to Mina midway or something like that. Anyway, there are 3 ways to play through Dracula, Curse of the Vampire. The first is to use 2 6-sided dice. That's what I'm going to use. Second is to use a conventional pack of 52 playing cards. That's what you could do, Brian, with your massive collection of playing cards. The third is to ignore the rules altogether and just read the book, making choices as appropriate, but ignoring any combat or attribute tests, always assuming you win every battle and pass every test. Even if you play the adventure this way, there is no guarantee that you will complete it at your first attempt. Excuse me. Where Dracula Curse of the Vampire differs from other titles in the Ace Gamebook series is that if you play as one of the 3 vampire hunters, you'll be able to change which of the 3 characters you were playing as at regular points throughout the adventure. However, if you choose to play as Count Dracula, you will experience a unique adventure from the vampire's point of view. And I'm just in awe of that, because again, it feels like they probably wrote like a whole separate game book within this one book just to incorporate Dracula's point of view. And again, I'm not entirely sure it's totally separate. There might be some overlap in the paragraphs, but I imagine there would have to be a lot of distinct ones just for Dracula. If you're opting to play through Dracula Curse of the Vampire using the game rules, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the dice. You first need to determine the strengths and weaknesses of the various characters in the game. That should be familiar to anyone playing game books. Playing as the vampire hunters. Each of the 3 vampire hunters has 5 attributes that you will need to keep track of during the course of the adventure using their adventure sheets. Some of these will change frequently, others less so, but it is important that you keep an accurate record of the current level for all of them. Agility. This is a measure of how athletic and agile a character is. If they need to leap across a chasm or dodge a deadly projectile, this is the attribute that will be employed. Combat. And these seem all straightforward, pretty much. To me, anyway. This is a measure of how skillful a character is at fighting, whether it be wielding a keen-edged blade in hand-to-hand combat, or firing a gun, or going toe-to-toe in the boxing ring with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Endurance. This is a measure of how physically tough a character is and how much strength they have left. This attribute will vary more than any other during your adventure. Yeah, it's your hit points. You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get healed. You know, usual stuff. ESP. This is something you usually don't have in a game book, though. Also known as extrasensory perception. This is a measure of the strength of a character's psychic sixth sense. Sixth sense. In other words, how capable they are of receiving information directly with their mind. Do they have a good, antenna in their head? Rather than via any of the recognized physical senses. Terror. This is a measure of how scared a character is. The more terrified a character becomes, the less likely they are to be able to cope in frightening or traumatic situations. That's usually written in, I like to think of like in Cthulhu-based horror, Lovecraftian horror, whatever you want to call it. They usually have sanity, or actually in general, in a lot of kind of RPGs that use like a horror setting, there's usually something called sanity. But here we have terror. Unlike some adventure game books, in Dracula Curse of the Vampire, characters' strengths and weaknesses are not determined randomly. However, everyone's terror score starts at 0, so you're counting up with terror. You're not scared at first, and then you get messed up in the head as time goes on. You add to the terror number. In addition to the 5 basic attributes, each of the vampire hunters may employ the pen is mightier special ability at critical moments during the adventure, which allows them to avoid coming to blows with an enemy by altering the narrative of the encounter and enabling them to escape unscathed. And we've seen that before in the Krampus game book. I don't remember if Beowulf had that too, but it might have. Hello, Mr. Eric Johnson's in the house. He's one of our other super regulars. We got 3 super regulars in the chat so far. We just need Stu, and that's pretty much all our super regulars. All right. Welcome, by the way, Eric, if I didn't already say that. Yeah, so we're doing some Dracula game book action tonight, if that wasn't clear. Right. Continuing what I was reading. However, this special ability can only be used 3 times by each character during an adventure. Each time you call upon it, you must cross off one use on the relevant character's adventure sheet. So that's interesting. If I can be playing as swapping out different vampire hunter characters, that's 9 uses of the pen is mightier, it sounds like. I don't know how often you're going to get to actually swap out, though. On the following pages, you will find each of the 3 playable vampire hunter characters in Dracula Curse of the Vampire, described in turn, along with their strengths and weaknesses. Each one will affect the course of the narrative in quite different ways as you read the book and play through the adventure. If you decide to read through the adventure as one of the vampire hunters, let's slide this away a little bit. Before you begin, you will need to decide which character you want to play as. You will soon discover that there are places where you are given the opportunity to swap characters. You're free to either play as the same character throughout or to chop and change whenever you are given that option. However, it is very important that you keep track of which character you are playing as at any one time, and that you update the correct character's adventure sheet. For example, if Mina Marie gains 2 terror points, make sure you don't add them to Jonathan Harker's total. Likewise, if Jonathan Harker loses 1 ESP, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Do not deduct it from Dr. Stewart's ESP point. All right.
Seems like it would be beneficial to swap them out. I mean, unless the characters can like really get powerful over time. I don't really feel like that would be the case for this kind of game. Like it's not like a D&D game where you're leveling up and getting powerful, and then oops, you swap to a weaker character. I don't know. Maybe there is something like that to some extent. It could just be like a in terms of equipment, you might have some good equipment as one character, and maybe you don't want to swap out. But I'm just speculating. Mr. Jonathan Harker is our first vampire hunter. He does not look like Keanu Reeves in this picture. Jonathan Harker has not long qualified as solicitor and has recently taken a junior position at the firm of Hawkins, Oldman and Lee in the English city of Exeter. I'm going to be making a fool of myself mispronouncing these English names, by the way. I don't. Hopefully, I'm not too bad at them, but I don't. I was never good at them. Anyway, I'm a random American dude, so hopefully any Brits who watch this will forgive me. But I'm going to call it Exeter in Devon. He is hardworking and has a meticulous eye for detail. He is engaged to Miss Mina Murray. Whenever you see a cross icon beneath a section number, rather than read that section, add 10 to the number. Turn to this new section immediately and read that one instead. So that's basically Jonathan Harker specific variants of a paragraph, right? So if I go to paragraph 32 and it shows this cross, that means I get to apply something about the character of Jonathan Harker. I don't know if it's a personality trait or an item he has or what, but it would be like specifically, a paragraph specifically dedicated to the character. Anyway, he has agility 9, combat 10, endurance 24, and ESP 7. And I guess we won't really have an idea of whether, some of those are good or bad until we see the other characters as well. We have to compare them, right? It's all relative. Next, we have Miss Mina Murray. Mina. She looks like so. She's holding a book. Miss Mina Murray is engaged to be married to the dashing young solicitor Jonathan Harker. To aid him in his work, he is practicing her secretarial skills. She is devoted and dedicated and possesses a keen intellect and logical mind. Her best friend since childhood is Miss Lucy Westenra, who's not doing too well, who is everything that Mina isn't, flighty, illogical, and lacking in erudition, having been born into a wealthy family and being blessed with a beauty that makes any man other than Mina's fiance Jonathan, it seems, instantly fall in love with her at first sight. Whenever you see a bat icon, batty bat, beneath a section number, rather than read that section, add 20 to the number. Turn to this new section immediately and read that one instead. All right, so it's kind of the same thing as I was saying about Jonathan Harker. We get to add 20 when we see a bat for the specific Mina Murray stuff. And she has agility 8, combat 8, endurance 20, ESP 8. And if we compare her to Jonathan, it looks like we've got lower agility, lower combat, lower endurance, but higher ESP. You kind of, yeah, I mean, I don't really know the value of ESP, but it looks like looks like offhand that she has the shorter end of the stick. But it's hard to say. Right? There might be more to her than just stats. More to her character than just stats, perhaps. Okay, we're going to the next page, and we have Dr. John Seward. Despite his young age, Dr. John Seward, known as Jack to his close friends, runs the Carfax Asylum. Carfax, in Purfleet, Essex, having focused on diseases of the mind since qualifying as a medical practitioner. A man of science, he holds no truck with the supernatural. When he was at medical school, one of his tutors was Professor Van Helsing of Amsterdam, the renowned physician and psychiatrist. Whenever you see a skull icon beneath a section number, rather than read that section, add 30 to the number, turn to the new section immediately, and read that one instead. And again, looking at the stats, he looks like he's the most agile of the characters we've seen so far. It goes 9, 8, 10 for agility. And combat-wise, he's got 9, which puts him in between Mina and Jonathan. Endurance 22, which also puts him between Mina and Jonathan. ESP 6 is the lowest of the three characters. Okay, next up. Next up is Nandor the Relentless. No, that is our friend Count Dracula, or enemy, or whatever. Depends on your allegiance. Friend to some, devil to others, whatever. Blood point. Before we get to him, though, blood points and the vampire hunters. There is one more statistic you will need to keep track of during your adventure, and that is the number of blood points you have. You begin the adventure with 0 blood points. While each vampire hunter has their own unique set of stats to keep track of, they share the same blood score. The blood score keeps track of how powerful Dracula is becoming, as the vampire hunters battle to stop his plans coming to fruition. If you do something that alerts Dracula to the fact that you are hunting him, the blood score will increase, whereas destroy one of the vampire's agents and the blood score will decrease. Be warned. While playing as more than one of the vampire hunters during the adventure can have certain benefits, it can also result in Dracula becoming more powerful more quickly. For example, if Dr. John Seward does something that causes the blood score to increase, Jonathan Harker may suffer later as a direct consequence of the former's actions. Right, okay. So don't be stupid. I'm probably gonna do some stupid things. It's just bound to happen. Playing as Count Dracula. Dracula has 4 basic attributes: agility, combat, endurance, and ESP, just like the rest of us. Rest of us idiots. And these work in the same way they do for the vampire hunters. You will also notice a suspicion score on his adventure sheet. The purpose for this will be explained during the course of the adventure. Huh. Count Dracula, born in the 15th century, Vlad Tepes III was the ruthless ruler of the Principality of Wallachia, whose fondness for skewering his enemies on blunted stakes earned him the moniker the Impaler. Could have at least sharpened them a little bit. By sorcerous means, he was transformed into one of the undead and has survived to the present day by drinking the blood of the living. And his stats. Now, this is kind of interesting to me because you would think he would be really superhuman. And he kind of looks like in the same ballpark as all the hunters we saw on the previous pages. Agility 8, combat 9, endurance 24, ESP 7. I guess like overall, I guess a little bit higher, like on average. Like if you added up all the points, he might be a little bit higher, but it's like I don't know. I kind of expected him to be like absolute insanely good. But that said, he probably has special powers, right? Or it could just be a balance thing. They don't want him to be too over the top that he's killing everything left and right or whatever. Anyway, here he is again. Check out those long fingernails. He needs a manicure. All right, so let's keep going over the rules. Those were the characters. Let me know in the chat which character you would like to see me play as, if you have any opinion. We've got the 3 hunters, Jonathan Harker, Mina, Dr. Seward, or the option of Count Dracula. I am leaning against playing Dracula to start with, but if there's enough of a riot in the chat, like you gotta play Count Dracula, that sounds awesome, I might be able to be talked into it. I'll put it that way. But I'm leaning towards being one of the vampire hunters. Blood points and Count Dracula. If you are playing as Count Dracula, the blood score is a measure of how powerful you are becoming. So in this case, a high blood score can be of benefit. When Dracula accumulates enough blood points, his rank increases, which in turn enables him to bring other dark powers to bear against his enemies. Dracula begins the adventure with 0 blood points. Yeah, so you level up as Dracula. Please note, if having achieved a certain rank, Dracula's blood score drops below the number of points required to reach that rank, he does not go down a rank and he does not lose any special abilities he may have already acquired. However, to progress to a new higher rank, Dracula's blood score would still have to reach the required number of points for that to happen. The following table shows you the number of blood points required to achieve each rank. We got at blood 0, he is the son of the dragon. At 10, Lord Impaler. At 20, however you say that, Voivode of Wallachia. At 30, Nosferatu. At 40, Count Dracula. 50, Prince of Darkness. 60, King of Vampires. 70, Emperor of the Dead. Testing your attributes. At various times during your adventure, you'll be asked to test one or other of the attributes of the character you are playing as at the time. If it is your agility, combat, or ESP that is being tested, simply roll 2 dice. If the total rolled is equal to or less than the attribute being tested, you have passed the test. If the total rolled is greater than the attribute in question, then you have failed the test. And then it gives you the alternate for playing cards. I'll gloss over that. If it is your endurance score being tested, roll 4 dice in total. If the combined score of all 4 dice is equal to or less than your endurance score, then you have passed the test. But if it's greater, blah, 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 then was being asked if you was beyond your current capabilities and you have failed the test. If you are using playing cards, yada, yada. Terror tests. Testing your terror score. we should go into the City of Terrors to test our terror scores. Anyone who's been watching my streams for a while will get that reference. Testing your terror score works differently from the other attribute tests. If it is your terror score that is being tested, roll 4 dice in total. If the total rolled is equal to or greater than your terror score, you have passed the test. If the total rolled is less than your terror score, you failed the test. And that's just kind of think about how it works, right? You start at 0 terror, and as you get more terrified, it increases. So it kind of makes sense that you would roll greater than. Well, a failure would be rolling greater than. No, sorry, a success would be rolling greater than. Let's say you only have, 1 terror. That means you're just a little bit creeped out. You cannot fail that terror test. But then, the more scared you get, the more likely you're going to be. And that also makes me think of the. I don't know if this reference will be lost on everybody, but the board game called Betrayal at House on the Hill. You make the haunt roll. There's like a haunt number that increases over time as spooky things happen. And if if the haunt roll is too high, then it goes into special stage of the game where everything goes crazy and scary. Restoring your attributes. In general, a character's agility, combat, and endurance scores may not exceed their starting values unless specifically stated by the text. However, a character's ESP score may exceed its initial value. Okay. There are various ways you can restore lost attributes or even be granted bonuses that take a character's attributes beyond their starting scores, and these will be described during the course of the adventure. An easy way to restore lost endurance points, I'm immediately expecting to talk about a meal, because that's what you do in the fighting fantasy games, right? You get meals, is to find sustenance. Yeah, meals. However, in Dracula Curse of the Vampire, there is another way to restore endurance points, and that is via journal entries. Interesting. If you're playing as one of the vampire hunters, whenever you read a section that starts with an extract from someone's journal, a letter, a telegram, or a newspaper extract, and is printed in this typeface, so it looks like it's a typewriter font, you may restore up to 4 endurance points. Okay. This only applies when a section starts with an extract of text and does not apply to any telegram or other piece of text that appears this way in the middle of a section. Count Dracula does not restore endurance points in this way. Remember, a character cannot exceed their starting endurance score unless specifically stated by the text. So this endurance boost does not apply to the very first extract you read at the beginning of an adventure. Okay, fine. Hand-to-hand combat. You will be repeatedly called on to defend yourself against all manner of horrors in Dracula Curse of the Vampire. Sometimes you may even choose to attack these monsters yourself. After all, as they say, the best form of defense is attack. Well, okay, it's a strong offense, but sure, same thing, I guess. When this happens, start by filling in your opponent's combat and endurance scores in the first available counter box on pages 35 and 36. And what they're talking about is simply, let me see, I have it somewhere here. Just keep track of the enemy's combat and endurance encounter box. See how tough they are. All right, here's what we do to resolve the combat. Is it looks like the same kind of basic stuff basically. Whenever you engage in combat, you'll be told in the text whether you or your enemy has the initiative. In other words, who has the advantage and gets to attack first. That's right. I've seen this in the other Ace game books, such as Krampus as well. The concept of initiative is important. And it's a little bit more advanced than Fighting Fantasy, I think, but it works. And if you look at this kind of whole description here, it looks like, oh my god, this is all the logic. It's a little complicated, but I remember that in the past Ace game books, it's really not that complicated. They kind of over explain it or maybe not over explain, but they're very complete in the explanation. Anyway, so 1, roll 2 dice and add. Well, let's back up a little bit. It's going to tell us who has the initiative. It depends on the text, basically. Then roll 2 dice and add your combat score. This is your combat rating. Roll 2 dice and add your opponent's combat score. This is the opponent's combat rating. For each combat round, add a temporary 1-point bonus to the combat rating of whichever of the combatants has the initiative for the duration of that round. So initiative gives you +1. If your combat rating, sorry, bear with me a sec. I need a dedicated cameraman, but the budget for Mark W. and Rob Bob Present is, I think I just owe money. I don't think I have any budget. If your combat rating, I have to borrow this phone. Is the overhead view. I haven't shown that yet. The overhead camera. Hello, here it is. That's a borrowed old phone from my wife. But this is cool for when I'm going to show dice rolls and the character sheets and whatnot. For now, it can go away. Anyway. Right. Budgetary constraints aside. If your combat rating is higher than your opponent's, you have wounded your enemy. Deduct 2 points from your opponent's endurance score and move to step 7. But let's keep going sequentially. If your opponent's combat rating is higher, you have been wounded. Same difference, except you're the one getting hurt. If your combat rating and your opponent's combat rating are the same, roll a die. If the number is odd, you and your opponent deflect each other's attacks. Go to step 10. If the number rolled is even, go to step 9. So basically, there's 2 ways there can be a tie. You either both hurt each other or nothing happens. For step 7, this was, again, if you win the combat round. If your opponent's score has been reduced to 0 or below, you've won. The battle's over, and you can continue the adventure. If your opponent is not yet dead, go to step 10. And step 10 is referred to a bunch of times. In number 8, this is for when you lose the combat round. If your endurance score has been reduced to 0 or below, your opponent has won the battle. If you want to continue your adventure, you'll have to start again from the beginning until you died, basically. But if you're still alive, go to 10. 9 is you and your opponent have both managed to injure each other. That's the tie case described in 6 up here. One of the 2 tie cases. Deduct 1 point from both your endurance score and your opponent's endurance score. Your endurance score has been reduced to 0 or below, you're dead. Blah, blah, blah. If you are still alive, but your enemy's endurance has been reduced to 0 or below, you've won. The battle's over and you can continue the adventure. If neither of you or your opponent did, go to step 10. And step 10 is if you won the combat round, you will have the initiative in the next combat round. If your opponent won the combat round, they will have the initiative. If neither of you won the combat round, neither of you will gain the initiative for the next combat round. Go back to step 1 and work through the sequence again until either your opponent is dead or you're defeated. Yeah, it's kind of like very well explained, but also kind of over-explained. I don't really want it to be complete, but essentially high roller on the 2 dice plus the combat roll wins. 2 damage to the loser. If there's a tie, there's a 50-50 chance of neither gets hurt, or you both get hurt for 1 instead of 2. Initiative adds 1 to the combat roll of whoever has initiative, and the winner of the combat round gains initiative for the next round. If nobody wins, then nobody has. If nobody wins the combat round, nobody has initiative the next round. So that's it in summary, in my own words. Fighting more than one opponent. I'm always like, I cringe at myself a little bit when I look at the time, the real world clock. Like, oh my god, I'm almost an hour in, and we haven't really started yet. All right, so we might not get too far into into the whole game. Maybe we can continue it next week. I'm not wrapping up yet, by the way. I'm going to play for at least an hour, hour and a half here, longer. Anyway, sometimes you may find yourself having to fight more than one opponent at the same time. Such battles are conducted in the same way as above, using the 10-step process, except that you will have to work out the combat ratings of all those involved. So in other words, I got to roll for, if I'm getting attacked by 3 bats, I have to roll bat number 1's combat total, or combat rating as they call it, bat number 2's combat rating, bat number 3's combat rating. And then it says, as long as you have a higher rating than an opponent, you will injure them, no matter how many opponents you are taking out at the same time. That's right. You fight them all at once. You're very talented. So I guess in that example, if I rolled a total of 10 and there were 3 bats, they rolled 8, 9, and 11. I beat and damaged the first 2 bats for 2, and the one that rolled 11 damages me for 2. It's like all done at once. It's not like I target only 1 bat at a time or anything. All right. However, for every 2 opponents, oh, this is interesting though. I have to read on a little more. For every 2 opponents, this kind of makes it a little bit extra special casey. I'm not quite sure I like it offhand, but I think I can handle it. For every 2 opponents you have to fight simultaneously, you must deduct 1 point from your combat rating for the duration of the battle. I mean, that makes sense though, because you shouldn't be able to scale indefinitely. Like, I don't know, 1,000 bats are attacking. It shouldn't just be like, I can fight them all off. So that kind of makes sense. And the example is Dr. Seward finds himself having to fight 2 lunatics at Carfax Asylum. For the duration of the fight, he must deduct 1 point from his combat rating because there's exactly 2. For every 2, you subtract 1. It said, if Mina Murray found herself fighting 3 wolves, she would still only have to deduct 1 point from her combat rating. But if Count Dracula found himself having to fight 4 vampire hunters at the same time, he would have to deduct 2 from his combat rating for the duration of the battle. Okay. Ranged combat is the thing. If you acquire a revolver, a rifle, or another gun or some kind during the course of your adventure, you may use it when instructed by the text, but also during some combats. They all behave in the same way. If you find yourself in battle and you have the initiative in the opening combat round, you may choose to fire your gun before engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Take a combat test, and if you pass the test, you cause your opponent 3 endurance points of damage. If you fail the test, you have simply wasted your shot. If you hit your opponent, you may take a second shot, but no more after this. Okay, and then you do the hand-to-hand after that? Would that be after the... I'm going to worry about that when we get there. I'm just a little confused. If I take a second shot, does that mean after that, then we do hand-to-hand? I guess probably. And they talk about how to use the 52 playing cards, alternative to dice. I'm going to skip that. I don't really care. Equipment. During the course of your quest, you will no doubt come across all manner of curious items that you will want to pick up and take with you, just in case they prove to be of use later on. Anything that you do collect should be recorded on your adventure sheet, including any weapons and any other miscellaneous unusual objects. Code words. You will also come across various clues and useful pieces of information or be forced to endure unusual or unpleasant experiences. Sounds fun to me. During the course of your adventure, the knowledge you have acquired and the experience you've endured are tracked in the form of code words, a list of which appears on page 33. I think that's the thing I showed earlier, and it's in one of these sheets. Yeah, here we go. On the sheet where you're keeping track of the blood, it also has the code words. What are some of these words? Quinquaginta? Psychopathia. That sounds like me. Okay. We're getting close to the end here. See, we got this vampire here. That means the game's about to start. He's waking up. Come on with it already. Code words they are cumulative and are not necessarily restricted to specific characters. For example, Harker, Mina Murray will discover useful information about Count Dracula. They can share that information, which could then be a benefit to any of them later on. Hints on play. There is more than one path that you can follow through the adventure to reach your ultimate goal. But it may take you several attempts to actually complete the adventure, so it's advisable to make notes as you progress. Keep a careful eye on your attributes throughout the game. Be aware of traps and setting off on wild goose chases. However, it would be wise to collect useful items along the way that may aid you further on in your quest. Excuse me. Lastly, and although this has been mentioned already, it bears mentioning again. It's very important that you keep a careful track of which character you are playing as during the course of your adventure. You do not want to accidentally increase Dr. Seward's ESP if you are playing as Mina Maria. Yeah. For some reason, I feel like that wouldn't be that hard, but maybe if you're swapping out a lot, it could be. I mean, I could just keep one of the sheets in front of me and the rest aside. I think I'll be fine. Makes me wonder if some playtesters had trouble with that or what. Anyway, here we have the sheets that I've already printed, so I don't need to really show those. All right, so does anyone have any opinion as regarding who I play as? Because now is the time to decide. Do not tarry, for the dead travel fast. Here comes the ship. If you are playing as Jonathan Harker, turn to 1. If you are playing as Mina Murray, turn to 250. Seward at 500. Dracula at 750. All right, I mean, I guess if no one has any opinion, why don't I just be Jonathan Harker? So I got to keep an eye open for the cross. Add 10 to the section number and read that one instead. Anytime I see the cross, that's my special power, sort of. And I gotta keep track of the blood level. Do the blood thing. But yeah, so I will just put my main character here. Put the other stuff aside. All right. Let's go to paragraph 1. The reason I picked Jonathan Harker is because I can just go to 1. It's right here. Jonathan Harker's journal. Sorry, I'm doing my Keanu voice here. When we started for our drive, the sun was shining brightly on Munich, and the air was full of. I'm sorry. And I'm not going to attempt to do an English accent either, by the way. So I'm going to make Dr. Seward talk like a cowboy, because I can do that better than an English accent. No, I'm just going to read in my own voice. When we started for our drive, the sun was shining brightly on Munich, and the air was full of the joyousness of early summer. Having arrived in the Bavarian capital of Munich, with a day to spare before your train departs for Bistritz, in the region of Transylvania, you decide to make the most of your enforced sojourn and instruct Herr Delbruck, the maitre d'hotel of the Quatre Saisons, where you are staying, to hire a carriage so that you might go for a drive in the surrounding countryside, it being such a glorious day. Herr Delbruck does as you ask, and just as you are about to depart, comes down to the carriage and wishes you a pleasant drive. His hand still on the handle of the carriage door, he says to the coachman, Johann, remember you are back by nightfall. The sky looks bright, but there is a shiver in the north wind that says there may be a sudden storm. But I'm sure you will not be late. He smiles before adding, for you know what night it is. Johann answers with an emphatic, Ja, mein Herr, and touching his hat, drives off quickly. If you want to ask the coachman what is so special about tonight, turn to 31. If not, go to 92. I'll ask it, except I feel like in the story, he's kind of just wondering about that. I don't really remember. I didn't bother to read the original novel of Dracula until I was in like my early 30s, which was a while ago now at this point. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Some people don't like the letter style, but I thought it worked very well. Here's a scary looking moth or something. When you are clear of the town, you signal the driver to stop. Tell me, Johann, you say, when you have the full coachman's full attention. What is tonight? He crosses himself before answering. Walpurgisnacht. Taking out his watch, a great old-fashioned German silver thing as big as a turnip. He looks at it, with his eyebrows gathered together. and an impatient shrug of his shoulders, clearly unhappy about this unnecessary delay. If you want to press him to tell you more about this Walpurgis Nacht, turn to 63. If you merely want to motion him to proceed, turn to 92. I get the idea. You can go on. 92. And as always, feel free to chime in with choice suggestions. You can just type in the paragraph. You can do it even if I'm saying, I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go to number 1. And she goes, oh, you're allowed to go, no, I think, number 2 is a much better choice. Or sometimes I'm going to be indecisive and say, oh my God, guys, I need you to help me decide. That way I can blame you in case it goes badly. Johann urges the horses forward and the carriage bounces over the rutted road. It's a little bit hard it's hard to manage this with such a thick book. Manage these arms holding it in place. Every now and then the horses throw. I'm just going to hold this with my finger for now. Every now and then the horses throw up their heads and sniff the air suspiciously, causing you to scan the countryside you are passing through for any sign of what might have startled them. But there is nothing there, at least not anything that you can see. The road is quite bleak, for you are traversing a high, wind-swept plateau. As you drive, you catch sight of a road that appears little used, which dips through a winding valley. It looks so inviting that you call to Johann to stop. And when he has pulled up, you tell him that you would like to drive down that road. The coachman starts to make all sorts of excuses and frequently crosses himself as he speaks, as well as looking at his watch. He doesn't have a Garmin watch, so I don't think. He has a giant turnip-sized thing, as if in protest. Then the horses start to become restless again, their nostrils flaring as if they can... I can't do the flaring sound that they would probably make. As if they can smell something unpleasant on the breeze, and Johann grows pale. Jumping down, he takes the frightened animals by the bridles and leads them on some 20 feet. If you want to ask Johann what has spooked the horses, turn to 122. If you do not want to know what has upset the animals, turn to 154. Well, I don't know, I'll ask him. I feel like I'm trying to balance asking for information and not knowing him, but he's just going to say vagaries about creepiness because of Walpurgis Nacht, I think. Unless he goes, the Nosferatu. Okay, 122. For an answer, Johann crosses himself again, points to the spot you have just left, and then to a wooden cross set up at the road junction. Buried him what killed themselves. You have heard of the old custom of burying suicides at crossroads, but for the life of you, you cannot understand why that would frighten the horses. Take off the code word suicide and turn to 154. Okay, we're going to write down the code word suicide. Where is that? Oh, right here. Okay. $154. A long paragraph. Okay. Well, Johann, I want to go down this road, you tell the coachman as you exit the carriage. I shall not ask you to come unless you like. But tell me why you do not like to go. That is all I ask. At that, he stretches out his hands appealingly to you and implores you not to go. There is just enough English mixed with the German for you to follow the drift of his talk. He seems on the verge of telling you something, but the very idea of which evidently frightens him, but pulls himself up by simply saying, Walpurgis Nacht. You suddenly hear a sound, somewhere between a yelp and a bark. It comes from far off, but it upsets the horses nonetheless, and it takes all of Johann's skill to quieten quieten them again. That sounds like a wolf, you say. Yes, but there are no wolves here now, Johann replies, his face pale. Is it a long time since the wolves were so near the city, you ask? Long, long, the coachman answers. In the spring and summer, but with the snow, the wolves have been here not so long. As Johann struggles to calm the horses, dark clouds rapidly cross the sky, the sunshine passes away, and a breath of cold wind teases at your hair and clothes. But it proves to be only a breath, a warning of worse weather to come, perhaps, for once the clouds have passed, the sun comes out brightly again. Johann squints as he gazes at the horizon. The storm of snow, he comes before long time, he grumbles. Then he checks his watch and, keeping a tight hold on the horse's reins, climbs onto the driver's box. You do not immediately get back in the carriage. Tell me about the place where the road leads, you say. Next page. Johann is a habitual crosser. Johann crosses himself yet again and mumbles a prayer before answering, It is unholy. What is? The village. There is a village? No, no one lives there hundreds of years. But you said there was a village, you persist. Yes, was. So where is it now? Whereupon the coachman embarks upon a long story in both German and English, and so mixed up you struggle to understand exactly what he's saying. As far as you can tell, hundreds of years ago, much of the populace had died there and been buried in their graves, but sounds were heard under the clay, and when the graves were opened, men and women were found rosy with life, their mouths red with blood, and so, in haste to save their lives and their souls, those who were left fled to other places, to where the dead were dead and not something else. Johann is evidently afraid to speak the last words. In fact, he is in a perfect paroxysm of what's that word? Paroxysm of fear. A white-faced, perspiring, trembling, and looking around constantly, as if expecting some dreadful presence to manifest itself there, in the bright sunshine on the open plain. Finally, in agonized desperation, he cries, Walpurgis Nacht, and points to the carriage for you to get in. Your English blood rises at this, and standing back, you say, You are afraid, Johann. Go home. I shall return alone. The walk will do me good. Taking your oak walking stick and closing the carriage door, pointing back to the city, you say, Go home, Johann. Walpurgisnacht does not concern Englishmen. Well, we're too fancy. We're too aloof for the supernatural evils. I don't know. There is nothing the poor fellow can do to dissuade you from the course of action you've decided upon. And so, with a despairing gesture, he turns the horses towards Munich. Do you want to watch him depart to make sure he does as you have bidden? 179. Or will you set off down the winding road into the valley? 209. Why do I care what he does? That's interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. Let's see. I told him to go home. So it's like, do I want to make sure he goes home or do I just go without checking that? That's kind of a little weird that they prompt you for that, right? Almost seems like if I don't check, something could be up. So I'll give you guys a moment to choose 179 or 209, and I'll make the final decision though. If nobody has any opinions, or if you do, I might contradict you anyway. But let's see. Let's see. We had 30 visitors tonight so far, but not many people sticking around. It looks like. All right, I'm gonna make sure he does it as I have bidden. Turn to 179. Come on, Johann, just go home. Leave me be. Or he's gonna stand around crossing himself all night. Leaning on your stick, you watch Johann leave. He drives slowly along the road for a while, but then you catch sight of a figure coming over the crest of the hill. A man, tall and thin. When he draws near the horses, they begin to jump and kick about, and even to whinny in terror. Johann is clearly unable to hold them, and they bolt down the road, fleeing this place at a mad run. You watch, concerned for the coachman, till the carriage passes out of sight, then look for the stranger again, but he too has gone. There was something unnerving about the man's sudden appearance and subsequent disappearance. Add 1 point to your terror score. I've already got a terror point. All right, Jonathan Harker is a little bit scared. Here's our terror box. I just wrote a 1 there as well. And turn to 209. Now, it's always interesting when you look at these paragraph numbers. Was this just an aside that had no effect, but to add to my terror? And then 209, was that like the same, the same choice I had earlier? So in other words, was this a purely bad paragraph, or did it affect anything? That's kind of what I wonder about, but I don't remember what the other choice was. If it was just pure badness, there's no reason to visit that one again next time, if I could actually remember that. It's all good, though. I'm not going to try to min-max my games here. I'm too old for that. I don't plan on repeating it 100 times. Anyway, turning down the side road, you head through the deepening valley. You do not see any reason for the coachman's objection to the route, and walk for a couple of hours without having any care of the time or distance covered, and without seeing a single person or even a house. The place is desolation itself. And then, on turning a bend in the road, you come upon a scattered fringe of woodland. You sit down to take a moment's rest and begin to look around. It suddenly strikes you how much colder it is now than at the commencement of your walk, and something like a strange sighing sound that seems to come from all around you is your constant companion. Just the wind, right? Thick clouds are massing in the sky overhead, and sensing that a storm is coming, you resume your journey. Having lost all track of time, it is only when the deepening twilight forces itself upon you that you begin to consider how you might find your way back to the Quatre Saisons. Again, I don't know how to pronounce it very well. Quatre Saisons. The air is cold, and a sound is carried on the wind, not unlike the mysterious cry you thought was made by a wolf. And for a moment, you hesitate. If you want to retrace your steps back along the road that brought you into the valley, turn to 239. I'm not going to go back now. If you would prefer to press on, determined to at least see the deserted village, having walked all this way, turn to that's been overrun with vampires, but I'm going to go there. I'm going to press on, find this deserted village by turning to 10. You are dead. Here's Renfield up here, but I'm not fighting him. The Renfield combat paragraph. Anyway, here we are at 10. Presently, you come to a wide stretch of open country, shut in by hills all around. Excuse me. Their sides are covered in trees, which spread down to the plain, dotting in clumps the gentler slopes and hollows that are visible here and there. The winding road curves close to the densest of these thickets before vanishing behind it. And then the snow begins to fall. Oh boy, I'm walking all this way in the snow. Thinking of the miles and miles of bleak country you have passed, you hurry on, seeking shelter in the wood. Darker and darker grows the sky, while the snow falls faster and heavier, until the ground all around you is a glistening white carpet, the furthest edge of which is lost in misty vagueness. In only a little while, you realize that you must have strayed from the road, for you miss the hard surface underfoot, and your feet sink deeper into the snow. The wind grows stronger, the air becomes icy cold, and in spite of your exertions, you begin to suffer its ill effects. Deduct 2 from your endurance. So my endurance is now 22. Or Mr. Jonathan Harker here. The snow is falling thickly and whirling around you in rapid eddies so that you can barely see your hand in front of your face. Yeah, this is pretty bad. While every now and again, it's probably like the least bad thing I'll find in the whole book, but it's pretty bad. I'd be scared if this happened in real life. Anyway, you can barely see your hand in front of your face. While every now and again the heavens are torn asunder by vivid lightning. In the flashes, you can see ahead of you a great mass of trees, chiefly yew and cypress, all heavily coated with snow. As soon as you're in the shelter of the trees, the rush of the wind is muffled by their snow-bent boughs. You realize that the darkness of the storm has merged with the darkness of the night. As the storm dies down, you hear the weird wolf sound again, which is now echoed by many similar sounds that come from all around you. Add 1 to your terror score. All right, we got 2 terror. Here's the character sheet once again. ESP 7 at least still. Jonathan Harker's gonna die in the snow, eaten by wolves. And this is a paragraph that continues to the next page. Now and again, a straggling ray of moonlight pierces the black mass of drifting cloud, lighting up your surroundings with its otherworldly monochrome luminescence. Skirting the edge of the copse, you find that a low wall encircles it, and following this, you soon come upon an opening. Here, the cypresses form an alley that leads up to the square mass of a building. Oh, there's something. Just then, the drifting clouds obscure the moon again, and you pass along this path in darkness, shivering from the cold and nothing more, you are sure. Knowing that there is at least the hope of shelter up ahead, you grope your way blindly on. And then suddenly the moonlight breaks through the clouds once more, revealing that you are not in a village, but a graveyard. The edifice ahead of you isn't a house, but a massive tomb of marble. What can go wrong, right? As white as the snow that lies on and around it. With the moonlight, there comes a succession of long, low howls, as you might expect a whole pack of wolves to make. Impelled by some sort of fascination, you approach the sepulchre. Etched in German into the lintel above the Doric door are the words Countess Countess Dullingen of Gratz in Styria, sought and found death, 1801. On top of the tomb, seemingly driven through the solid marble, is a great iron spike, while on the back wall, graven in great Russian letters, you see, "The dead travel fast." There is something so unsettling about this whole place that you start to wish you had taken the coachman's advice and stayed away. No kidding, huh? You feel the cold perceptibly grow upon you until it seems to grip you by the heart, and your whole body starts to shake from fear as much as the freezing effects of exposure. Well, I guess I gotta go take shelter in the tomb, right? You start to back away from the tomb, moving towards the trees that mark the boundary of the graveyard. When the storm decides to unleash all its fury upon you, the ground shakes as though thousands of horses are thundering across it, and the storm bears upon its icy wings great hailstones that beat down both leaf and branch. If you want to run for cover within the trees, turn to 48. If you would prefer to seek shelter within the sepulchre itself, turn to 77. All right, I need your help, guys. I mean, obviously there's undead about in this game, but I'm an Englishman who does not believe in such silly things, so maybe I'll just do that. But, it would, if we were pretending there was no undead around. I would think the sepulcher would provide better shelter than just some trees. So it's do we pretend that we do we pretend we're not going to get killed by vampires? And we might actually die. We might have to just have a fight with one. However, I don't think I'm equipped with wooden stakes and whatnot. Um, or this could be kind of like almost a I don't know, like a red herring, kind of throwing you off, making you think you're going to get attacked by the undead, but you don't. Wishful thinking, I guess. So let me know what you guys think in the chat. To take cover in the trees, type 48. To take shelter in the tomb, 77. I'll give you guys like 30 seconds while I recite the Pledge of Allegiance. No, I don't really want to recite that right now. I need to find like a song I can sing while I'm waiting for choices. I guess I could sing the Jeopardy theme. Do, do, do. Oh, Eric says the trees. All right, all right. Eric's probably smarter than I am because I was leaning towards the tomb. It's probably more exciting in the tomb. Let's go to the trees. If we're in a world with vampires, you're probably right, Eric. Okay, I'm going to go to the trees, 48. It really throws you right into the danger here, right? "48. You rush to the nearest cypress, but find it offers you barely any shelter at all from the hammering hail. I mean, like, kind of what I was thinking. Like it would be very light cover, if anything. But that's okay. I'm owning the choice, leaving you no choice but to run for the refuge offered by the tomb. Okay, it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of making you go. There's diverting you there, whether you like it or not. But take an endurance test. If you pass the test, earn a 77. But if you fail at 106, all right, let's do our first test of the game. Now for endurance, you roll 4 dice, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Famous last words. What could go wrong? No, yeah. So I have an endurance score of 22, and what I have to do is on 4 dice, simply roll a 22 or less, which should be astoundingly easy, really. One would hope. So let's zoom in our overhead view of the dice tray and get rolling. I need 2 more of the dice. I only had 2 ready at the moment. There we go. So we're gonna roll these 4 dice and try to get a 22 or less. I mean, I think I have like a less than 1% chance of failure. All right, we're good. We rolled an 18. Turned to 106. And Ryan said something in the chat. Let me check what you're saying. Why don't you just roll 1 die and multiply by 5? All right. That's an inside joke or something else. Certain other game designer said I should do that kind of a thing. All right. 106. What before you sought to avoid, you now sprint towards in search of shelter from the hailstorm. However, before you reach the marble mausoleum, you are struck by the full force of the icy bombardment. Eric says, I'm listening but playing Overwatch with our friends, so I'm not in the chat. I'm like, oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And if I'm pressuring you to say something in the chat, like, come on, please give me a choice. You don't have to. It's totally fine. Ryan, you have to. You have no option. And Arturo, you must. I am joking, of course. I think it's fun to solicit decisions from the chat, but ultimately, I'm the decider. All right. So yeah, the icy bombardment. Roll 1 die and divide the result by 2, rounding halves up. Add 3 to this total, and deduct that many points from your endurance. Alternatively, pick a card. Okay, forget about the card. Yeah, so we're gonna take 3 plus half of the die roll, basically, of damage. Once again, we will switch to this view. So we take 4 damage. That's the best outcome for that particular roll. And that takes us to 18 endurance. Turn to 61. Oh dear. Getting intense fast. This is not what happened to Jonathan Harker in the story, right? He didn't like it. I don't know if I deviated from the original or not. I don't really remember how it went down. Like, did he didn't the carriage take him right to Dracula's castle? Or I don't know. I don't really. It's been so long. Well, like I said, I did read this one in my early 30s, but I'm that much older than that at this point that I can't really remember. Anyway, yeah, we're saying hi to this lovely lady. It looks like. All right, let's read the text. Reaching the deep Doric doorway of the tomb, you crouch against the massive bronze door, gaining at least some protection from the pummeling hailstones. Sorry about this. It's hard to, with a thick book like this, it's actually hard to manage holding the pages open and everything. But that's okay. Improvising. Where were we? Getting at least some protection from the pummeling hailstones. For now, they only drive against you as they ricochet from the ground or the marble walls. But as you lean against the door with a groaning of ungreased hinges, it opens inward. The shelter of even a tomb is welcome in the midst of such a pitiless tempest, and you are about to enter when there comes a flash of forked lightning that lights up the whole expanse of the heavens. In that instant, as the darkness of the tomb is banished, you catch sight of a beautiful woman with plump cheeks and full red lips, seemingly asleep upon a stone. What's that word? Beer or Bier? I'm going to look up what that one means. That's beer in German. Beer, the kind you drink. But in, okay, beer. Beer is a movable frame on which a coffin or a corpse is placed before burial or cremation, on which it is carried into the grave. Okay, I know what they mean. Doesn't mean German for beer in this case. All right. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, she got plump cheeks and everything, rosy cheeks, full red lips. As the thunder breaks overhead, she stirs and rises from her marble bed. But you're not even sure that her feet are touching the ground. But how can this be? Surely to have been lying in a stone-cold tomb in the graveyard belonging to a village that was depopulated centuries ago, the woman must have been dead. But then how is it that she can appear as fresh as if she has just woken from a sleep? Walpurgisnacht, man. Add 1 point to your terror score and tick off the code word succubus. Oh, it's a succubus. They're very helpful to me in that NetHack game I've been playing. I gained a lot of stats from that, right? Not a lot, but I gained something, I think. Anyway, succubus is checked off, and I gain a terror, was it? Yeah. So our terror is at 3. She suddenly fixes you with eyes that seem to burn red and glides towards you, her hair and gown streaming out behind her in the gale that has found its way into the sepulchre. Her pristine features twisted to a demonic snarl, and speaking German, she says, oh, should I try the German? Volhab? I don't know. Who would disturb my sleep this Walpurgis night? Walpurgis night. Vo is where? Warum is who, I think. I'm so rusty with my German. I'm rusty with this story, rusty with my German. Oh, Warum is why, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember even my basic question words. Anyway. And then, hands outstretched before her, reaching for you with fingers twisted into claws. She flies at you screaming, no matter, you will pay with your life's blood. This is where I say I defend myself with the penis, my dear. No, if you want to use the pen is my dear special ability. Cross off one use and turn to 131. I feel like I'm so early in the game. I'm just gonna deal with what she can bring on. Bring it on, Succubus. If I die, if he dies, he dies. Let's do it. I'm gonna deal with her. I'm not gonna use the cheat code right yet anyway. 91. As the woman you can only suppose might once have been the Countess Dolingen of Grat rushes towards you. Her elongated eye teeth, excuse me, bared like fangs with a bestial grimace of a face. You prepare to defend yourself as best you can using your stout oak stick. In this battle, your assailant has the initiative. Yeah, I guess she kind of, given how terrified I probably am, and this is like blowing my mind. I'm sure I'm not really, 5 minutes ago I didn't believe in the undead. Yes, that makes sense that she has the initiative. So that means we add 1 to her combat, and that makes us equal because Jonathan Harker has a combat of 10. So basically, if I can win a round, I'll get the upper hand, and that's going to help a lot. That's my hot take. If you are still alive after 6 combat rounds, or if you reduce the Countess's endurance to 5 or fewer, whichever is sooner, turn to 131 at once. All right, so 6 combat rounds or endurance 5 or fewer. All right, let's take our encounter boxes thing here. We're gonna go overhead now. And let's take this Countess. I'm imagining the Countess from Pee Wee's Playhouse. Remember the cow? Her combat is 9, and endurance is 11. All right. So now I need some dice for her. Let's choose a nice evil color. I already have these vampiric looking dice ready for just such an occasion. So these will be her dice, and I will roll the black ones. I'm going to roll the white ones because I'm the good guy. No, I really want them to be distinguishable more. So I like to collect these dice from Chessex, by the way. I really like the designs, and the size is perfect. They're not too big, not too small. I'm kind of a D6 collector. You talk to most like gamer nerds who like to collect dice, and they'll get the polyhedral dice for their D&D and stuff. I pretty much only collect the D6s. Got a whole bunch. This is only some of my collection. These are the ones I've selected for this particular foray into the world of Dracula. I'm trying to show you the side that's clear here. Yeah, these ones look kind of fiery. I like that. These are purple with kind of copper pips. Gold or copper? They call it gold. Okay, royal purple with gold pips. Pretty nice combo. Anyway, let me get out. Oh yeah, have the white dice out. Yeah, let's roll them together, I guess. So right now, once again, she has initiative, so it's essentially the high roller wins. Because her combat is 9, but with plus the initiative, it becomes 10. And I have 10 off the bat. So I'm gonna roll all 4 at once. And it looks like she beat me 9-6, unfortunately. So I take 2 damage. I am at 16. Keeping track on my character sheet. And that means she maintains the initiative because she won the round. Next up, I totally owned her that time. 7 to her 3. So I take down her endurance to 9, and perhaps more importantly, or nice bonus, I gain the initiative, meaning my my combat is increased by 1, and hers is increased by none, which is actually a net bonus of 2, right? Because I have 11, she has 9 now, rather than us both having 10. Hopefully that'll you know, kind of keep this. Hopefully, I can keep the momentum going here. That's what I'm getting at. And I won this round too. I'm supposed to keep track of number of rounds. Actually, I'm on that was just round 3, I believe, right? But if I hit her one more time, she'll be knocked down to 5, which is another condition that takes me to paragraph 131, which I'm assuming is she retreats or something like that, or have an opportunity to escape, or something like that. Okay, looks like I won again. So I knocked her down to 5, and therefore we're done rolling for now. And we go to paragraph 131, as it says right here. So I took a little bit of damage, but overall, I was the victor instead of the kill. Oh, okay. I was hoping this was like a nice victory lap here, but it does not necessarily seem like that. I see something about deducting more endurance. Just then there comes another blinding flash, the lightning, I guess, which strikes the iron spikes surmounting the tomb and pours through it into the earth, shattering the marble edifice in an explosion of incandescent flame. Wow. You are hurled out into the storm as if you have been grasped by the hand of a giant and pulled backwards. For a moment you catch sight of the Countess, contorted in agony as she is lapped by the flames, and then her bitter scream of pain is drowned by another thunder crash. The relentless hailstones beat down upon you again while the air reverberates with the howling of wolves. Roll 1 die and deduct this many points from your endurance. I'm taking a lot of damage faster, and I didn't really do that badly in that fight. Anyway, roll 1 die and deduct this many points from your endurance score. Alternatively, this is something I don't like about this pick a card stuff. Is I can appreciate having an alternate mechanic, but it's like for every time you roll a dice, it's like alternatively you do this, and like it would be nice if there was like in the front of the book just kind of the translation of dice to cards like written once there, that it wouldn't have to clutter up the main text. Whatever, minor gripe, not a big deal. Anyway, so I'm gonna roll 1 die and deduct this many points from endurance. Let's just pop this overhead cam up real quick, and we roll a 5. Oof, takes us down to 11. We were at 24 a second ago, and a few minutes ago. Now we're at 11. I'm hoping I have an opportunity to heal up or rest or something. Maybe when Count Dracula takes me. Anyway, if you're still alive, turn to 89. Sorry, 1 sec. Well, that looks pleasant. Oops. I'm hoping that's the other paragraph. It's an attractive fellow. I do like the artwork. It's pretty well done, I think. 89. Shaking with cold and shock, you struggle to your feet. But as you do so, you find yourself surrounded by a vague white moving mass. It is as if all the graves around you have opened and sent forth the phantom forms of their shrouded dead, and they are closing in on you. Yeah, time to run. One of the ethereal specters draws near you, and you begin to make out details. A skull-like visage beneath the hood of a grave sheet, and fleshless fingers reaching for you. That's this one. Yep, time to get out of here. Add 1 point to your terror score. No. Getting terrified and beaten up quickly. Terror is now 4. If you want to use the pen is mightier, I'm going to stop that bad joke. Just call it the pen is mightier. Special ability now. Cross off 1 use. Turn to 263. I don't know. I kind of don't want to use it right now. Even though I am definitely getting into trouble early. I'm going to keep on going with it. I know I'm going to have to deal with worse stuff than these guys, right? Later on. Turn to 263. Or not if I do use it. I'm not using it, so 204. Looks like I have another fight on my hands, folks. I was hoping I could just like run away. but no such luck. Taking your stout stick in your hand once more. I guess these are solid creatures. I mean, it's not like an immaterial ghost. Apparently, it's something I can whack. Taking your stout stick in hand. Once more, you lash out at the phantom. Oh, hey there. Anonymous. Let me say hi to you quick. He says, hey, just saw your post on the Gamebook's Reddit page. I have the book too, but I haven't read it. Is it good so far? Yeah, I'm enjoying myself so far. It's a little tough early on. I mean, not tough, but it's making you hit the ground running with dealing with horrible fiends and baddies. It's not a complaint. It's just interesting. But yeah, I'm fighting a phantom in this graveyard now. But welcome, Anonymous. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so the phantom glides towards you over the icy ground. In this battle, the phantom has the initiative. Combat 8, Endurance 9. Okay. And if you manage to make a successful strike against the ethereal entity, turn to 233 immediately. The fact that it mentions ethereal, it makes me think it's going to actually not hit it. It's going to like go through its body, perhaps. And then it says after 4 combat rounds, even if you haven't managed to lay a single blow against a wraith, turn to 263. All right, so let's get our overhead cam going again. And what we have is a phantom. And it has 8 combat and 9 endurance. Okay. No, it's not super clear, but hopefully it doesn't matter much. All right, yeah, so this is, since he has the initiative, I have the advantage by 1 because my combat is 10 and his is 8 plus 1. So again, we'll use these creepy looking dice. These ones don't really, these ones kind of glare a bit much though. Maybe I'll use the black dice for the enemy. Yeah, I'll go with that for now. All right, so yeah, I'm up by 1 essentially, combat-wise. And unfortunately, he beat me in the roll by 2. So I take 2 damage, and my endurance is dwindling quite quickly. It is currently at 9. Okay, round 2. Looks like it beat me again, 9-6, even with my +1. It wins. That's round 2. I'm at 7. Round 3. Oh, man. He rolled crap, but I rolled even crappier. So even with my +1, I lose still. It's round 3. I am down to 5 endurance. And round 4. All right, I won that one. So, if you manage to make a successful strike, turn to 233 immediately. I don't know if I subtract his endurance or not. I'm going to do it, unless it tells me otherwise. Turn to 233. Do you have any favorite game books, Anonymous? How about for anybody here? Does anybody have any favorite game books? I know some of you probably don't actually play game books much. I don't know if you've ever said you play game books, Ryan or Arturo, or maybe Eric. You have. I don't remember. What are your favorites if you played them? That would be a fun conversation starter, I hope. 233. You strike the specter, but your stick passes straight through it, leaving nothing but a trail of clinging mist in its wake. You are incapable of injuring the phantom. All right, so I've got to take back that damage I did, I guess, if it even matters. Take off the code word Spectre. Okay, so now our code word sheet has another check mark. I've already got 4 of them. That's pretty impressive. We have, well, this one's an error, actually. Get 3 of them. We have Succubus, Suicide, and Spectre. Not somnambulism yet, which means sleepwalking. And Anonymous says, no favorite yet, but I heard a lot of good things about Rider of the Black Sun. I don't know that one. Currently, I'm playing the Tavern on Gallows Hill, and it's pretty good. Not amazing, but worth a read. Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff in the world of game books. And even when they're not fantastic, they can be fun. You know, you roll some combats and have fun. it's definitely it's a fun pastime. We have a focus problem. There we go. All right. At 1 point to your terror score as well. I'm a wreck already. I got 5 terror and 5 endurance left. Turned to 263. Here's some scared nuns. I wonder if this is from when you play as Dracula's point of view, which you can actually do, by the way. For those who just joined us. You can play as Dracula or one of the hunters. I'm playing as Jonathan Harker tonight. All right, and Anonymous says, and Sword of the Bastard Elf. That one is supposed to be amazing. One of the best game books ever. It's also one of the largest game books ever. No kidding. That intrigued me. I like the name too. Sword of the Bastard Elf. Is that like its own thing, or is it part of a pre-existing like system sort of thing? And I don't want to waste time Googling for random things while I'm supposed to be presenting. But, I just think of how, my family and friends, like, want me to add some wish list items for the holidays, and my birthday's around this time, too. So it might be fun to find another cool game book to add to the list. Anyway. Yeah, I'm always up for game books. Actually, Rob Bob got a bunch of game books for like his birthday a couple years ago, and he's not really played them before. So I got to get him over here. He's always got things to do lately, but I got to get him to maybe play one of his game books. That could be fun. And Anonymous says it has 1,825 sections. Wow, this one has 1,000, so that's almost double the size. Holy crap. It's funny. It reminds me of British humor like Monty Python. That sounds great, yeah. Cool. Thanks for the info, Anonymous. Now, let's read 263. The waking nightmare you have found yourself in is too much to bear, and you faint from shock. The spectral dead close in on you en masse. Oh, you would think you're just dead right there, but I guess not. Gradually, there comes the vague beginnings of consciousness. Then a sense of dreadful weariness, and slowly your senses return. Your body is racked with pain, and yet you feel yourself unable to move. You are aware of an icy feeling at the back of your neck and all down your spine. Am I a vampire now? But there is in your breast a sensation of warmth, which you find by comparison delicious, and yet also a heavy weight that is making it difficult for you to breathe. A wild desire to be free grows within you as you become aware of the low panting of some animal close by. Feeling a warm rasping at your throat, you come to a state of full consciousness at last. Realize some great animal is lying on top of you and licking at your neck. You dare not move, but through half-closed lashes you see above you the great flaming eyes of a gigantic wolf. Its sharp white teeth gleam within a gaping red mouth, and you can feel its hot breath, fierce and acrid upon you. More terror. Add 2 points to your terror score. My goodness. Okay, I'm at 7 terror. The wolf gives a low growl, and you fear for your life. But then, coming from seemingly very far away, you hear a "Holoa, holoa," as of many voices calling out in unison. Risking all, you raise your head and look in the direction whence the sound came. Oh, I like they used that correctly. I have a lot of like language peeves because I'm a bit of a nerd. The word whence literally means from where. So when somebody says from whence they came, it's just redundant. And so I got really annoyed in the Lord of the Rings movie when Gandalf says from whence you came. Like, oh no, come on, Gandalf should get the word right. But it's one of those things you look up in the dictionary and it says enough people use from whence that it's kind of acceptable now. Anyway, I'm just being a huge grammar nerd now, so let's get back into the game. Anyway, whence the sound came, but the cemetery blocks your view. As the wolf starts to yelp, you see a red glare moving through the groove of cypresses as though following the sound. As the voices draw closer, the wolf's yelping intensifies. Yelping intensifies. Nearer comes the red glow dancing over the white pall which stretches into the darkness around you. Then all at once, from beyond the tree, there comes a troop of horsemen bearing torches. My saviors, apparently, or my killers. I don't know. The wolf rises from you, and makes to flee. As one of the horsemen, who are soldiers, judging by their caps and long military cloaks, raises a carbine and takes aim as the animal slinks away, and a shot follows. Moving at a gallop, the troop rides forward. Some towards you, others in pursuit of the wolf as it disappears amongst the snow-clad trees. Several of the soldiers jump down from their horses and kneel beside you. One of them raises your head and places his hand over your breast. Good news, comrades, he cries in German. His heart still beats. Turn to 294. And now I need some TLC because I got to rest and recover from all this endurance damage I've suffered. I need some food and rest. Maybe I should have listened to the driver and not gone down that path all along, right? I could have just turned back, but then what would happen? What's interesting to me is I don't think any of this is in the book. It's kind of interesting how the author can extrapolate so much. I think it's kind of quite impressive. 294. Some brandy is poured down your throat, which goes some way to reviving you. Hey, that's all you need, some brandy. Cures all ills. You're tangoing with some supernatural, creatures, and brandy is what you need. That could help you with your terror too. Maybe it'll calm you down a little bit. Anyway, it says regain 2 endurance, which takes me back up to a sarcastically whopping 7 endurance. Hey, it's better than 5, right? Opening your eyes fully, you look around. You see lights and shadows moving among the trees, and then the men who set off in pursuit of the wolf come pouring out of the cemetery, pell-mell, like men possessed. Have you found him? Asks one of your rescuers. The reply rings out hurriedly. No, come away quick, quick. This is no place to stay, and on this all of nights. What was it? It indeed, gibbers one of the new arrivals, clearly out of his wits. A wolf, and yet not a wolf, cries another. No use trying for him without the sacred bullet, remarks a third. Serves us right for coming out on this night. Truly we have earned our 1,000 marks, declares a fourth. I guess that means their pay. 1,000 marks. There was blood on the broken marble, says the first. I think I did that, huh? Did I do that? The lightning never brought that there. And for him, he turns his attention towards you now. Is he safe? Look at his throat. Nothing to see here, guys. Got my turtleneck on. The wolf was lying on him and keeping his blood warm, says the soldier holding her head, who seems to be the least panic-stricken of the party. On his sleeve you make out the chevron of a petty officer. His throat is all right. The skin is not pierced. What does it all mean? Asks another. We should never have found him but for the yelping of the wolf. What became of it? Asks the officer. It went home, answered the first, whose long face is pallid and who is actually shaking with terror, as he glances around him fearfully. There are graves enough there in which it may lie. Come, comrades, come quickly. Let us leave this cursed spot. Several of the men... Scrolling. Several of the men help the officer put you on a horse, and he climbs into the saddle behind you. He gives the order to advance, and the hunting party rides away in swift military order. You ride through the night until a red streak of sunlight appears over the horizon and is reflected like a path of blood over the waste of snow. Does that mean Walpurgisnacht is over at least? Reaching the suburbs of Munich, the soldiers come across a stray carriage into which you are lifted. Could that be the one I guess it would say so if that was the one I came here in the first place. Into which you are lifted. The young officer drives you to the Quatre Saisons himself, a trooper following with his horse, while the others ride back to their barracks. When you arrive at the hotel, Herr Delbruck rushes so quickly down the steps to meet you that it is apparent he has been watching from within, anxiously awaiting your return. Taking you by both hands, he solicitously leads you inside, while the other salutes you and turns as to withdraw. If you want to insist that the officer comes with you to your room so that you might thank him properly, wait a minute. Why don't you come to my room and I can thank you properly there? That's what it sounds like to me. Sorry, maybe my head's in the gutter. Turn to 324. If you would prefer to retire so that you might rest and recuperate after your night's adventures, turn to 354. You know what? I'm going to thank him properly. And I'm going to get my head out of the gutter. I'm just actually thanking him. 324. Gotta appreciate someone who saves your life, right? And it's kind of funny though that, by the way, Anonymous, that you mentioned this Bastard Elf book that has 1,800 paragraphs. Because I was just saying in the intro to this stream, I was explaining this is the biggest game book I've ever seen, and I was assuming that probably is the single biggest one, but it sounds like this Bastard Elf guy is bigger. The Sword of the Bastard Elf. Over a glass of wine, you thank the officer and his brave comrades for saving you. The Riesling is as effective a restorative as a good night's sleep. So the Riesling is actually better than the brandy. It has 3 points of endurance. So now I'm up to 10 endurance. Woohoo! Climbing up. I'm clawing my way back up. Still not near 24 though, but 10. Hey, at least it's double digits, right? The officer replies, saying simply that he is more than glad to have been able to help, and that Herr Delbruck had been the one to first take steps to make all the search party pleased, at which ambiguous utterance the maitre d'hotel smiles, while the officer pleads duty and withdraws. Turn to 354. And Anon says, I think the average is about 400 sections. Most of the Fighting Fantasy books are 400. Yeah, that sounds about right to me, yeah. I've done some of the Tunnels and Trolls books, and some of them can be very short. Some of them might have like 30 pages or so. But they can vary. Here's the thing. It told me in the intro that I could, anytime I get to a paragraph that starts with this typeface, or an entry that starts with a typeface, I can restore something with endurance. However, it specifically said it has to be the very beginning of the entry. So this typeface here would not count. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. But Herr Delbruck, you inquire, when the officer has gone, how did you know I was lost? I'm trying to remember what my relationship is with this Herr Delbruck. They mentioned in the beginning, but I kind of forgot. Was I staying with him or something? The driver, Johann, came hither with the remains of his carriage, which had been upset when the horses ran away. But surely you would not send a search party of soldiers merely on this account. Oh, no, he replies. But even before the coachman arrived, I received a telegram from the boyar, whose guest you are. And he takes from his pocket a piece of paper, which he hands to you, and you begin to read. Bistritz. Be careful of my guest. His safety is most precious to me. Should aught happen to him, or if he be missed, spare nothing to find him and ensure his safety. He is English and therefore adventurous. You know those Englishmen, I guess. There are often dangers from snow and wolves and night. Yeah, we're to what they alluded to earlier, that we don't believe in the supernatural or something, but I guess this Englishman now does. And just to give you a peek at another combat here, I'm going to cover the stats. Dracula the Undead. It's a battle. Anyway, we're not there. I just happened to notice that paragraph. Yeah, so next page. Lose not a moment if you suspect harm to him. I answer your zeal with my fortune. Dracula. Oh, signed Dracula. Okay. Okay. That kind of changes the whole tone of that telegram. He's like, oh, his safety is very important to me. I signed Dracula. Let me read that back again a little bit. Careful of my guest. His safety is most precious to me. Spare nothing to ensure his safety, etc. Okay. Signed Dracula. Your pal, Dracula. Okay. Oh, that Dracula guy sounds like a nice fellow. As you hold the telegram in your hand, the room seems to whirl around you, as if the attentive Herr Delbruck had not been there to steady you, there is no doubt in your mind that you would have fallen. The feeling grows upon you that you are in some way the sport of opposing forces, the mere idea of which threatens to paralyze you. You are certainly under some form of mysterious protection, for a message had come from a distant country just in the nick of time to save you from the dangers posed by snow, sleep, and the jaws of a wolf. Now that makes me scared. Add 1 to your terror score, which is now 8, and turn to 384. It's kind of amazing that you can pick from 4 different characters who have different starting points. I'm assuming the hunters might converge, like their path should probably converge, but I'm thinking that the Dracula path probably does not, or at least not very much. I could imagine potentially like there could be like, I don't know, just generic travel paragraphs or something that might apply to Dracula as well as the hunters. Bear with me as I screw back on my arm here. Not my real arm, but my book holder's arm. Sometimes the screw gets loose. It's got to tighten that screw a little bit, basically. Anyway, 384, right? That's what it said. Jonathan Harker's journal. Okay, we get to recover something because there's typeface now. It's a journal entry. I don't remember what, so let's review what it said in the front. I think it's like 2 endurance or something. Okay, it says so up here. I'm really stretching my camera angle here. Anyway, basically, you may restore up to 4 endurance. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm getting the impression here that you might take a lot of damage, but you might recover a lot too. So it might be very swingy in terms of your endurance. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. Like, look at this roller coaster I've been on. 24, 22, 18, 16, 11, 9, 7, 5, 7, 10, 14. It's not necessarily bad. It kind of, I'm thinking about that. That kind of, I kind of like that. As long as you don't feel like you're very unfairly getting bumped off, I think that's okay. But we'll see how it progresses, I guess. Jonathan Harker's journal, May 3rd. Left Munich at 8:35 p.m. on the 1st of May, arriving at Vienna early next morning. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east. We left in pretty good time and came after nightfall to Klausenberg. It is on the dark side of twilight when you finally reach your destination, Bistritz. Being practically on the frontier, for the Borgo Pass leads from it into Bukovina. It has suffered a very stormy existence, and it certainly shows the marks of the fires that ravaged the town 50 years ago. Following the directions Count Dracula relayed to your office before you left England, following Renfield's... Am I reading the right thing here? Yeah, I was never introduced to Renfield and stuff. Just making sure I'm reading the right paragraph. It's probably fine. Just trying to make sure that none of the other ones might make sense. None of the other paragraph. That's kind of funny. I see in one of the other paragraphs they reference an Alucard, which is Dracula spelled backwards. I thought the first instance of Alucard was in one of the Castlevania games. See that Alucard right here. This is not my paragraph. Anyway. Bear with me a minute. I'm just going to rewind my stream to make sure I went to the right paragraph. Yeah, 384. Add 1 point to your chart score. Go to 384. Okay. All right. So, following the directions, Count Dracula relayed to your office before you left England, following Renfield's return and the poor man's descent into madness. Okay, I guess it's just assuming I know all that or something. I guess they hinted at it a little bit, didn't they? Yeah, okay. You make your way to the Golden Crone Hotel. Oh, that caught my attention because I didn't know that was a thing from Dracula, but I have a roguelike game called Golden Crone Hotel, and it's about vampires. I've played it on this channel before. So I thought that was kind of made up for that game, Golden Crone Hotel, but I guess it was borrowed from Dracula. And I probably just never thought of that name since I read Dracula. It didn't stick in my memory. Anyway, you make your way to the Golden Crone Hotel, a thoroughly old-fashioned place where the Count has arranged lodgings for you. You are greeted by a cheery-looking elderly woman, wearing the usual peasant dress. She bows and says, "The Herr Englishman?" "Yes," you confirm, "Jonathan Harker." The old woman smiles and gives some message to an equally elderly gentleman in white shirt sleeves who had followed her to the door. He disappears but returns a moment later with a letter which he passes to you. "My friend, welcome to the Carpathians. I am anxiously expecting you. Sleep well tonight. At 3 tomorrow, the diligence will start for Bukovina. A place on it is kept for you. At the Borgo Pass, my carriage will await you and bring you to me. I trust that you will enjoy your stay in my beautiful land. Your friend, Dracula." Thank you. I know I did a wonderful performance just then. All right, I gotta take this kit with me. This is kind of one of those separator things or like fillers that a lot of game books have. This one is like a whole vampire fighting kit. You got a gun, Eucharist, crucifix, wooden stakes, another cross, a sword of some sort, a cleaver or knife or something, some bottles of something or other, a hammer. I guess that goes with the stakes. Kind of fun. I imagine that's like the kit that Van Helsing carries around or something. Now you can't play as Van Helsing, but that's kind of funny. I was gonna say I assume you can encounter him in the game, and just as I said that, or that as I was mid sentence, I see this paragraph that references Van Helsing. Anyway, we're at 407, not the Van Helsing paragraph. "407. Your bed is comfortable, and the town is quiet after sundown." That sounds nice. "But you still do not sleep well, for your dreams are haunted by wolves and worse." I mean, I can't blame the guy after all that he's already encountered. Weird goings on in the cemetery. Getting attacked by a succubus. Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to not be wobbly here. Okay, it's a little better. "How many of the following code words do you have ticked off? Superstition, no. Suicide, yes. Succubus, yes. Inspector, yes." Oh, good. I found 3 of these 4 horrible things. So I will be going to the 2 or 3 paragraph, which is 447. Oh, that sucks. 447. "You are deeply disturbed by your horrid dreams, and it is a feeling that remains with you after you awake. Lose 1 combat point." Oh, that sucks, doesn't it? And turn to 498. That knocks my combat to 9, which isn't bad. I think Harker has the best combat of the 3 hunters. But now it's 9 instead of 10. So we're going to 498 as instructed. "498. You rise early the next day and set about preparing for your onward journey. You learn that your landlord also received a letter from the Count directing him to secure the best place on the Bukovina coach for you. Do you want to ask him how this was arranged? Turn to 522. Ask the landlord and his wife what they know of Count Dracula. 552. Or do you simply want to finish packing? Let's ask what they know about Count Dracula. 552. $552. Do you know Count Dracula, you ask? And what can you tell me of his castle home? After that, the landlord and his wife cross themselves. There's a lot of this going on. Saying they know nothing. Like, I know nothing. I know nothing. No, don't know anything. And simply refuse to say anymore. What can be unnerving them so? Their unsettled disposition leaves you feeling on edge too. Take off the code word Babona, and return to 602. Babona? Babona. Babona. That's right here. You can see the check off. I have a bunch of these already. I got Spectre, Suicide, Succubus, and now Babona. Turn to 602. Okay, 602. You return to your room to finish packing. Just as you are about to leave, the old lady visits you there and says, in an almost hysterical manner, "Must you go? Oh, young hare, must you go?" She is in such an excited state that she loses her grip on what little German she has, mixing it up with some other language you do not know at all. "I must go at once," you tell her sternly, "for I am engaged on important business." "Do you know what day it is?" she asks, managing to compose herself a little. "Well, we just had Walpurgis knocked. How could it be worse than that?" Do you want to answer the old woman's question? Turn to 636. Or will you shoo her out of your room having had enough of her histrionics? All right, let's answer her question. It's the day after Walpurgis knocked, apparently. 636. Let me guess. It is Flag Day. "636. Of course, it is the 4th of May, you reply. "I know that," she says, shaking her head. "But do you know what day it is?" "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "It is the eve of St. George's Day. Do you not know that tonight, when the clock strikes midnight, all the evil things in the world will have full sway?" How many of those days are there? We just had Walpurgis now. How many of those nights? "Do you know where you are going and what you are going to?" She is so obviously distressed that you try to comfort the old woman, but without any success. I mean, at this point, from what I've seen, you would think I would actually take her seriously. You know? Or have some kind of a pause about this whole deal. Finally, she drops to her knees, still imploring you not to go, or at least to wait a day or two before heading off. Her reaction to you leaving seems ridiculously over the top and makes you feel deeply uncomfortable. After all, there is business to be done, and you cannot allow anything to delay you. "I am on important business," you tell her. I'm not gonna revert to Keanu. "I must go. I just did it. Don't." Realizing that you will not be deterred, the old woman rises and dries her eyes. She takes a small golden crucifix from where it hangs about her neck, and offers it to you. "Madam, please," you say, "I am an English churchman. As such, you have been taught that such trinkets are idolatrous, and yet it seems ungracious to refuse an old lady who means well, and who is in such a state of mind. For your mother's sake," she insists, offering you the rosary. If you want to accept the proffered gift, turn to 667. If not, turn to 687. I'll take it. I was actually expecting possibly it would give me the choice of trying to wait a day or two. And as I was reading that, I was thinking, that might be, it might be wise to do that, but it probably would have a negative effect somehow. Like, Dracula would be impatient, which doesn't sound like a good thing in general. You don't want to make Dracula impatient. But that's not a choice. It's just, do I want to take her rosary or not? I will take it. $667. 666 is at the end paragraph, by the way. 667. The neighbor of the beast. You submit and allow her to hang the crucifix around your neck. Record the golden crucifix on your adventure sheet. That can only be a good thing, right? All right, the first piece of equipment I picked up, actually. It's golden, too. You would think she would be like, well, if it's golden, you know, that's pretty valuable. But here's our equipment list. Hopefully I didn't write too big for the box. We always have the back, I guess. Okay, whether it is the old lady's fear, or the many ghostly traditions of this strange, un-English place, or the crucifix itself, you do not feel nearly as easy in your mind as usual. Take off the code word caressed, and then turn to 687. I don't know what that means. Caressed. Where's my code word page? Here we go. Okay, caressed has been crossed off, and go to 687. Hello. That's not my paragraph. You cannot tarry any longer. Your coach awaits, as does your client, Count Dracula. While the landlord and the driver take care of your luggage, you board the coach and take the only remaining seat, the carriage being quite full. The coachman has not yet taken his seat, and you can see him talking to the landlady. Sorry, I'm just reading this over again. Okay. A crowd begins to gather at the entrance to the inn, and you become convinced the gossips are talking about you. For every now and then, they cast pitying glances in your direction. Like, oh man, he's going to see Dracula on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's actually Star Wars Day, isn't it? You can hear a lot of repeated strange word. Nosferatu. I made that one up. I don't know what they're saying. Do you want to look up their meaning in the dictionary? That's fun. Let's do that. That's what I would do in real life, probably. Like, what are they saying? I would Google it real quick. Just hold up the Google Translate audio thing. Hold up my phone. Anyway, right. So, do you want to look up their meaning in the dictionary you have brought with you on your expedition to Eastern Europe? Turn to 717. Or will you just settle yourself for the doubtless long journey ahead? 747. Yeah, it's dictionary. It's totally what I would do. 717. Or I could just ask them, you know, what is the word blah, blah, blah? Seven 17. When you discover what the words mean, you can't help being reminded of the old adage, ignorance is bliss. Okay. Bear with me a second. I got things bumping into each other on my desk. All right. For among them are Ordog, meaning Satan, Pokol, hell, Dragoika, witch, Vrolok, and Vlok, how do you say it? Volkasak. Volkaslak, both of which mean something like werewolf or vampire. You're left wishing you had not bothered to seek to know the meaning of those words. Is it worth writing those down? Probably not. Yeah, witch, hell, Satan, scariness. You make a mental note to ask the Count about these dark superstitions when you meet at last. Take off the code word Gonos and turn to 747. 747 crashed into my den. All right, let's do that check mark real quick. Gonos. And oh, hey, Dan the Man. Dan the Man's in the house tonight. He says, surprised your terror didn't increase. Yeah, that's true. I just kind of got scared a little bit, I would think, yeah. From looking up those words. Yeah. I got lucky that time, I guess. By the time the coach sets off, the crowd round the inn door has swelled quite considerably. The locals all make the sign of the cross. Here we go. How many times have I seen the sign of the cross so far tonight? And point two fingers towards you. Are they doing this? You wonder what this gesture can mean. Do you want to ask this to ward off the evil eye or something? Or also to rock on? I'll ask one of your fellow passengers what it means. Sure. I feel like these questions make me look stupid and don't really tell me any info, but I like to ask anyway. It just means scary stuff. 772. Yeah, the guard against the evil eye. Told you. Not without some difficulty, you managed to get one of your fellow passengers, a man dressed in thick furs, to tell you what the gesture means. It is a charm to guard against the evil eye, he says in a thickly accented English. Take off the code word Varaslat and turn to 802. "802." The driver cracks the whip over the 4 small horses tethered to the traces. And you set off on your journey, but you will never forget your final glimpse of the inn yard and the crowd gathered round the wide archway, all crossing themselves. But you soon lose sight of the inn and your recollection of ghostly fears in the beauty of the scenery as the carriage bounces along the road traveling eastwards. Before you lies a green, sloping land full of forests and woods, and here and there steep hills crowned with clumps of trees or farmhouses. Everywhere you see a bewildering mass of fruit, blossoms, apple, plum, pear, cherry, and as you drive by, you can see the green grass under the trees, spangled with fallen petals. Excuse me. The road is rugged, but the coach seems to fly over it with feverish haste. The driver clearly does not want to lose any time in reaching the Borgo Pass, where you will meet the carriage that will carry you to your final destination, Castle Dracula. The verdant, swelling hills eventually give way to forested slopes that rise up to the lofty steeps of the Carpathian Mountains themselves. They tower over the road, which is little more than a rutted track to the left and right, as the afternoon sun falls full upon them, drawing out the glorious colors of the season, deep blue and purple in the shadows of the peaks, green and brown where grass and rock mingle, and an endless perspective of jagged rock and pointed crags, until these two become lost in the distance, where the snowy peaks rise grandly. Here and there you glimpse rifts in the mountains, through which the sinking sun highlights the white gleams of cascading waterfalls. Sound lovely. As the coach winds on its endless way, the sun sinking lower and lower behind you in the west, the shadows of evening creep closer. Here and there you pass Czechs and Slovaks. And by the roadside you see many crosses and the occasional wayside shrine. As you sweep past them, your fellow travelers cross themselves. A lot of this the whole time. You have never known such a superstitious land. The temperature drops, and the growing twilight merges the gloom of the trees into one dark mistiness. In the deep valleys between the spurs of the hills, dark firs stand out here and there against the background of the late-lying snow. Sometimes the way is so steep that, despite the driver's obvious haste, the horses can only go slowly, but he only halts the team for a moment's pause to light the carriage lamps. As it grows dark, your fellow passengers become agitated, urging him to hurry. He urges the horses on with wild cries of encouragement, "Yah!" and his long whip, with which he lashes them mercilessly. Through the encroaching darkness, you can make out a patch of gray light. The excitement of the other passengers grows as the coach rocks on its great leather springs, swaying like a boat tossed on a stormy sea. Then the mountains seem to grow closer again on either side, and you realize you must be entering the Borgo Pass. One by one, several of the passengers offer you gifts, odd tokens, and trinkets, which they press upon you with an earnestness it would be hard to deny. If you want to accept these gifts, turn to 832. If you want to refuse them, 117. I'll take gifts. I'll take superstitious gifts because they're probably going to help me, if anything. I'm sure that rosary is only going to help me. 832. Well, maybe these ones won't. But actually, oh, okay, look at that. It deducts one from my terror. Anyway, let's read it. The items are a curious collection of lucky rabbit's feet, tiny silver charms, and mountain ash. But knowing that your fellow passengers are genuinely concerned for your well-being does help to allay some of your fears. Deduct 1 point from your terror score, record the good luck tokens on your adventure sheet, and tick off the code word Serense. All right. So we got some good stuff. Let's see. Where's my sheets? Here we go. Okay, we got good luck tokens. Where? Good luck tokens. One less terror. And the code word Serense, whatever that means. All right. Turn to 117. That was the alternate option if I had not chosen to receive their gifts. So that was just a good thing to do. Well, unless the good token somehow turns out to be a bad thing later. I doubt it, though. Yeah. I'm in that coach right now. What does Dan the Man say? Let me check with Dan the Man in a moment. I'm gonna wrap up this stream soon, by the way. Maybe like as soon as I get to the Castle Dracula, unless there's a lot of stuff in between now and then. Oh, Dan the Man says crucifix might not help if it was a cursed crucifix from NetHack. Fair point. Oh, that crazy NetHack. He might like strangle you or something. Yeah, I'm doing for those who aren't aware, I'm playing the old roguelike game NetHack on my midweek stream. I'm calling the series NetHack and Chill. It's been a lot of fun so far. As the coach continues to fly along, the driver leans forward in his seat, while the passengers on each side crane their heads, peering eagerly into the darkness. At last, the pass opens out on the eastern side. Dark clouds roll overhead, and the air becomes heavy with the expectation of thunder. You peer out into the darkness as well, searching for any sign of the conveyance that is to carry you to the Count, expecting to see the glare of lamps through the blackness at any moment, but all remains dark. And then the driver brings the carriage to an abrupt stop, and you can make out a sandy spur road lying white before you, but there is no sign of any other vehicle. Your fellow passengers draw back into their seats, sighing as if with relief. It would appear that the conveyance you were expecting to meet you here in the Borgo Pass to take you on to Castle Dracula has not turned up. The driver looks at his watch, muttering, "An hour less than the time," and then turning to you says in German that is worse than yours, There is no carriage here. The hare is not expected after all. He will come. He will now come on to Bukovina and return tomorrow or the next day. Huh. But while he is speaking, the horses begin to neigh and snort wildly, pawing at the ground with their hooves, accompanied by a chorus of screams from the other passengers. A caleche, what's that word? Caleche, pulled by a team of 4 coal-black horses, appears as if from nowhere out of the night and draws up alongside the coach. It is driven by a tall man, Gary Oldman, with a long brown beard and wearing a great black hat, which hides his face from you, although his deep-set eyes appear to gleam red in the lamplight. You are early tonight, my friend, he says to the coachman. The English hare was in a hurry, the wretch stammers in reply. That is why, I suppose, you wished him to go on to Bukovina, says the bearded stranger. The driver blanches but says nothing. Okay, next page. We have an ugly ink smudge here. An error in the printing, I guess. You cannot deceive me, my friend. I know too much, and my horses are swift. He smiles, and the lamplight reveals a hard-looking mouth, with full red lips and sharp-looking teeth, as white as ivory. You half hear one of your companions whisper to another peasant, Den die Toten reiten schnell, for the dead travel fast. Give me the hare's luggage, says the stranger, and with startling alacrity your bags are put into the caleche. As soon as you are on board as well, the bearded man shakes his reins. The splendid coal-black horses turn, and you are swept away into the darkness of the pass. You cannot help but look back where you see your late companions crossing themselves, as everybody does in this book, before the coach driver cracks his whip, calling to his horses, and they are swept on their way to Bukovina. You feel a strange chill, an inexplicable feeling of loneliness come over you. A cloak is suddenly thrown over your shoulders, a rug is laid across your knees, and the driver says in excellent German, "The night is chill, mein Herr, and my master the Count bade me take all care of you. There is a flask of Slivovitz underneath the seat, if you should require it." Putting a hand under the seat, you find the flask and take it out. Opening it, you sniff the vapors that rise from within. The smell reminds you of plum brandy. If you would like to take a swig, turn to 139. If you prefer to put the flask back where you found it, turn to 168. So on the one hand, we have 2 incidences so far in which alcohol has actually cured my endurance. On the other hand, it could be something not good for me. Eric says drink. Okay. Well, that's all I need, Eric. All I need is the pure pressure of one person telling me to drink some alcohol. And I'm like, yeah, baby. All right, I'm gonna take a swig. This is not what you should do, kids. This is the opposite of what they taught me in health class about peer pressure and alcohol. But hey, it just smells like plum brandy, right? It doesn't smell like blood or something, does it? Look at that. The flask does indeed contain plum brandy, which warms you from the inside and helps to ease your anxieties. Gain 3 endurance points. All right. Yeah, every time they talk about like easing your anxieties or whatever, I feel like it should reduce 1 terror. But it does not. Anyway, I'll take that though. I have 17 endurance now. Suddenly it doesn't seem like I'm doing too terribly endurance-wise anymore. I was like on the verge of death. You can see all those slash marks. The 22, 18, 16, 11, 9, 7, 5, 7, 10, 14, 17. The flask contains 4 further measures. Oh, that's cool. And each measure will restore 3 endurance points. However, if you drink more than 1 measure in one go, you get drunk. You must also reduce your combat score by 1 point for every measure over the initial one that you drink until after your next battle. So you may also deduct 1 point from your terror score, but this is not cumulative. For example, if you drank 2 measures in one go, you would have to temporarily reduce your combat score by 1 point whilst permanently reducing your terror by 1 point. But if you emptied the bottle in one go, you would have to reduce your combat score by 3, but would still only reduce your terror by 1. Okay, so you got to pace yourself for the alcohol to give you peace of mind. That's kind of brilliant. All right, so I'm going to take the flask of plum brandy, and I'm going to write the paragraph number for reference. But I have how many uses? 3? Contains 4 further measures. I'm going to write four uses, and I'll modify that it is needed. See paragraph 139. Okay. And Dan the Man said this book promotes liquid courage, alcoholism. Okay, some moderation encouraged. Exactly. I kind of like that. It works like if you use it all at once, it's not really that beneficial. Now turn to 303. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap this stream up soon. I could keep going for hours, but I promised my wife I wouldn't stay up crazy late, and that's good for me too because we've had some bad sleep nights recently. My daughter gets these random nightmares and things, and her terror score is a little high, unfortunately, lately. Then usually one of us has to comfort her at like 3 a.m. or something. Anyway, soon you are hemmed in by trees, which in places arch right over the roadway, so it is as if you are passing through a tunnel. Great frowning rocks guard the track on either side. The rising wind moans and whistles through the rocks, and the branches of the trees crash together as you speed along. It grows colder still, and fine powdery snow begins to fall. Soon the Kalesh. I don't know if I pronounced it. I'm gonna look up that word just so I can pronounce it right and understand what it is. I gather it's a coach of some type, but I don't know what it specifically means. So Kalesh. I'm kind of saying it right, I think.
Kalesh.
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 Kalesh. A light, low-wheeled carriage with a removable folding hood. Okay. All right, now where was I? 303 here. Right, soon the Kalesh, the drivers, the horses, and you are covered with a white blanket. The baying of wolves cuts through the keening wind and sounds so close you wonder if the animals are closing in on you from every side. Suddenly, away to your left, you see an inconstant light like a flickering blue flame. The driver has clearly seen it too. Bear with me a sec. For he brings the Kalesh to an abrupt halt. And without a word of explanation, jumps to the ground, disappearing into the darkness. Whoa! He just kind of like, I'm out of here. See ya. You are left alone while the howling of the wolves draws closer. Do you want to disembark and set off after the driver? Turn to 333, or will you remain where you are and hope that the gypsy returns soon? 363. Well, I need some help from the peanut gallery. What do you guys think? Should I chase after the driver in the darkness, or hide or kind of sit here in the car and hope the gypsy returns soon? I feel like I remember this from the original story. I don't remember what Jonathan Harker does in it though. You have to figure that if you follow what he did in the story, it would probably result in the same outcome, but I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it could be he's taking care of something. Like he knows he has to do something. It's not. Maybe he might not just be bolting for his life. Like he has to clear something out of the way. I'm just kind of making it. Maybe I'll wait. Eric says I'd probably chase. Okay. What do you think, Dan the Man? Anybody else? So I can defer responsibility from myself. Ryan, Arturo, Anonymous. Who else we got in here? If you want to preserve your points, probably stay in the Kalesh, says Dan the Man. Oh, my terror points? Or an endurance? Yeah, maybe. All right, let's do it. I'm going to stay in the Kalesh. 363. All right, thanks for chiming in, everybody. And it looks like, yeah, for some reason I felt like this would happen. Maybe this actually happened in the book. As abruptly as he vanished, the man suddenly reappears and takes his seat again, without a word, and you resume your journey. You can't help feeling possessed. Excuse me. You can't help feeling possessed of an uncanny sense of looming dread. Time seems interminable as you continue on your way, now in almost complete darkness, for the rolling clouds obscure the moon. You sense that you are ascending, punctuated with periods of quick descent, until you become conscious of the fact that the driver is in the act of pulling the horses into the courtyard of a vast ruined castle, from who... Sorry, once I talking out loud for so many hours, I struggle a bit. Guess it's been about 2 hours 45 minutes. Anyway, right, from whose tall black windows comes no ray of light, and whose broken battlements show as a jagged line against the sky. In the gloom, the courtyard appears to be of considerable size, and several dark ways lead from it under the great round arches. The caleche comes to a halt, and the gypsy driver jumps down, holding out his hand to assist you to alight. You cannot help but notice his prodigious strength. His hand is like a steel vice that could crush yours if he so wished. He takes your personal belongings from the carriage and places them on the ground beside you. You are standing in front of a great door, clearly ancient and studded, with large blunt-headed iron nails, set within a projecting doorway of carved stone, although the carvings have been much worn by time and the weather. And let's check the chat real quick. Dandaman said the driver was sworn to protect you, so let him handle whatever it was. If you had more points, I'd have chosen to follow the driver just to be adventurous. Okay, good point, Dandaman. Where were we? As you stand there awestruck, the driver jumps back into his seat and with a shake of the rein sets the horses moving again. Trap, driver, and all disappear into one of the deeply shadowed openings. You can see no sign of a bell or knocker upon the door. So you simply stand there in the courtyard, in silence, not knowing what else to do. You could just knock on the door. You doubt maybe that's impolite to an Englishman of the era. I don't know. You doubt your voice could penetrate these frowning walls, even if you were to announce your arrival. And as you stand there, you realize that this is the same place Mr. Renfield visited before you, an expedition from which he returned a broken man. Well, that sounds promising. Okay, we're going to finish this one entry and then calling it a night, and we'll try to resume hopefully next week. Oh, actually, next week I might have something going on the next 2 Saturdays, so we'll see. But TBD. You hear a heavy step approaching from behind the great door, and see through the chinks the jaundiced gleam of a bobbing light. There is the sound of rattling chains, the clanking of massive bolts being drawn back, and the key is turned with the loud grating noise of long disuse. And finally the great door swings back. Within stands a tall old man. Stake to the heart, game over, I win. Within stands a tall old man, clean-shaven save for an extravagant white mustache, and clad in black from head to foot. He holds in his hand an antique silver lamp, the flame burning within, throwing long quivering shadows as it flickers in the draught of the open door. He motions to you with an antiquated courtly gesture. "Welcome to my house," he says in excellent English, but with a strange intonation. "Enter freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring." You step over the threshold, and the old man moves forward impulsively. Holding out his hand, he grasps yours with a strength that makes you wince. It seems cold as ice, more like the hand of a dead man than one of the living. Count Dracula, you ask? The old man bows in his courtly fashion. I am Dracula, and I bid you welcome, Mr. Harker, to my house. Come in, the night air is chill, and you must need to eat and rest. Blah, blah. Taking your luggage before you can forestall him, he leads you inside the castle. It is late, and my people are not available. Let me see to your comfort myself. Despite your protestations, he insists on carrying your bags along an echoing passage, and then up a great winding stair, and along another great landing, on whose stone floor your steps ring heavily. And at the end of this passageway, the Count throws open a heavy door, and you are delighted to see a well-lit room beyond. Inside, a grand dining table has been set for supper, while a great fire of logs flames and flares within the hearth. Stay a while. The Count puts down your bags, closes the door, and crossing the room opens another, which leads into a small octagonal room lit by a single lamp. Passing through this, he opens yet another door, motioning for you to follow. It is a great bedroom warmed by another log fire, which sends a hollow roar up the wide chimney. It is a most welcome sight, for you are exhausted. You are exhausted after your traumatic journey to the Count's home. The Count leaves your bags inside the room and withdraws, saying, "You will want to refresh yourself after your journey. I trust you will find all you wish. When you are ready, come into the other room where you will find your supper prepared. It is past midnight. If you want to politely decline your host's offer of supper and retire for what remains of the night, turn to 371. If you would prefer to have something to eat before retiring, turn to 146, but we're not going to do either. We're going to write down that we were at paragraph 363, and we will continue next time. And that's it for now, folks. Dracula, Curse of the Vampire. That was fun. Looking forward to doing it again next time. You know the usual deal. I will beg for likes and subscribes if you've enjoyed the stream. Yeah, I do Gamebook streams once in a while. Let me explain my general schedule. I kind of do 2 weekly streams when I can. You know, sometimes life gets in the way. Midweek, typically on Tuesday or Wednesday, I do what I call old games on a weekend. I play old video games, actually. Currently, I'm playing a series of the game NetHack. And on Saturdays, usually my son co-hosts with me. That's the Mark W. and Rob Bob thing. He's Rob Bob, Mark W. And we play anything. It could be video game, tabletop, game book. I do game books pretty often. But yeah, I'll finish my playthrough of Dracula the next time, most likely, or at least continue it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Is a lot of fun, but really, I feel like I've only just begun the game. We've only just arrived at Dracula's castle, right? That's like probably the first. I'm thinking of the original novel. It's probably like the first 50 pages or so, maybe even less. But yeah, so thanks to all the people who were in the chat as well. I'll call out some names romper room style. Thank you, Eric Johnson, Dan the Man, Anonymous. Going back earlier, we had RJNC, who is Ryan. And we had Neaton, who is Arturo. And that looks like everybody. If you want to shout out in the chat, if you want to shout out, you can say hi in the chat real quick, and I'll say your name if that excites you. But otherwise, that's it. Thanks for the additional like, whoever hit that. Yeah, what else is there to say? That's all. You're welcome for the stream, Eric Johnson. And I'll see you guys next time, hopefully. Take care, dudes. Bye.